Chapter 1551. Gong Rong told Gong Fu some things to take note of and started chatting endlessly. Ning Shu snatched the phone and inserted coins into it. He said to Gong Fu, "Miss Gong, I took good care of your brother. I let him eat and sleep well. Your brother also had fun with me. We are going to travel together in the future," Ning Shu said. "So?" Gong Fu's voice was extremely cold. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu hung up the phone angrily. Gong Rong raised her eyebrows and asked, "Why don't you need me to exchange for your mother?" Ning Shu kept saying that he wanted to exchange for his mother. Why didn't he say that just now? I'm also a person with a temper. Ning Shu dragged Gong Rong into the dark internet cafe. The internet cafe was filled with smoke and the air was turbid. Gong Rong looked as if she had eaten shit. Ning Shu paid the money and found a computer. He asked Gong Rong, "Which hospital did you hide my mother in?" Gong Rong shook her head. Ning Shu pulled Gong Rong's face. "Where?" Ning Shu wanted to pull her hair, but Gong Rong's hair was gone. "I know the previous hospital. But you kidnapped me. Fu will move." Ning Shu pulled at Gong Rong's face. "Which hospital was it before?" XX hospital. Gong Rong said a hospital. Ning Shu let go of Gong Rong's face. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She started hacking again. She wanted to check the information of the hospital where the client's mother was. "We can't say that word between us." Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu with a dark expression. She asked, "What word?" "Of course it's kidnapping. We have a deep friendship. How can it be considered kidnapping? I gave you an activity to stimulate you. Are you excited?" Gong Rong put on a fake smile. "I like shameless people like you." "Yes, so you have to tell your sister that I didn't kidnap you. This is just a game, a kidnapping game, just like your survival game." Ning Shu guided him patiently. Gong Rong chuckled and looked at the computer with her chin propped up. "Yes, your mother was discharged from this hospital the day you kidnapped me." Ning Shu angrily slammed the keyboard on the table. After that, Ning Shu checked the patient information of various hospitals, but there was no information about the client's mother. Could it be that the Gong family had already dealt with Su Xian's mother? The client's mother's illness was very serious. There were so many hospitals, but there was no information about the client's mother. Could it be that the treatment had stopped? Ning Shu abruptly turned his head and gloomily stared at Gong Rong. If she failed her mission, Ning Shu would definitely blow up the Gong family's mansion with explosives. "If that doesn't work, I'll blow up your corporation, Great Xia." For the first time, Gong Rong felt a strong killing intent from this little girl. It was a real killing intent. Previously, Gong Rong dared to make a scene because she didn't have any killing intent. Now that she couldn't find her mother, she was desperate. Gong Rong frowned and said, "You don't have to worry. Many hospitals don't register VIP wards." Ning Shu laughed sarcastically. "Could it be that your Gong family will take care of my mother with the best treatment? I've kidnapped you. Who knows how angry your Gong family will be." Ning Shu grabbed Gong Rong's wrist with a lot of force. Gong Rong felt that her wrist was about to break. Ning Shu called the Gong family again. This time, he didn't need Gong Rong to tell him the number. Ning Shu called them. Gong Rong stared at Ning Shu. He was a hacker with such a good memory. He was indeed a talent. This person had too many unsolved mysteries and too many strange things. But he didn't have much time left. No matter how many secrets she had, it was none of his business. The call connected. Ning Shu coldly said, "Gong Fu, where's my mother?" "I don't know." Gong Fu's voice was cold and full of contempt. Ning Shu laughed coldly. "I thought you two were very close. My mother is in your hands and your brother is with me. I think that if you stay any longer, I'll definitely become your sister-in-law. Ning Shu was deliberately provoking Gong Fu. Wishful thinking. Who do you think you are? Gong Fu scolded. Her embarrassment turned into anger. Her disdain was obvious. That's why you have to hurry and come pick up your brother. Your brother said that if you don't come, he'll be so sad that he'll broadcast himself jumping off a building. Gong Rong, the other end of the phone, was silent for a while. Miss Gong Fu was probably trying her best to suppress the anger in her heart and the anger of being offended. Okay, what's the location? Gong Fu's voice became colder. Okay, I'll tell you at midnight. I want to see my mother. She must be in good condition. Ning Shu hung up the phone. Gong Rong shook her head. Fu is too young and impetuous. It's good for you to grind her. Ning Shu laughed. Treat me as a whetstone. Don't break the knife in the end. Ning Shu laughed coldly in his heart. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Gong Rong. She might not win, but the Gong siblings couldn't win either. Gong Rong felt goosebumps from Ning Shu's stare. She asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Ning Shu said indifferently, "I think you're old again." Gong Rong was stunned. Then she smiled and said, "I'll always be 18 years old. It's good that you can maintain a young girl's heart." Ning Shu dragged Gong Rong back to the hotel. He bought some food to eat. Gong Rong's diet was very light. Moreover, his appetite was very small. It was like eating bird food. Ning Shu and Gong Rong formed a sharp contrast. Now Ning Shu didn't eat extravagantly. Even if he ate extravagantly, he still had to eat elegantly. Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu eating so much and was a little surprised. This is the first time I've seen a woman who can eat so much. You're so ignorant. You haven't even seen the entire world. You want to talk about the world with me? Hee hee. Ning Shu's face was full of ridicule. Gong Rong put down her chopsticks. The food in her bowl was basically untouched. Ning Shu asked, "How did you grow so big when you eat so little?" "Eating is actually very troublesome. I always inject." Gong Rong said. Ning Shu shrugged his shoulders. He directly injected the nutrients that the body needed to reduce the consumption of the internal organs. This way, he could alleviate the aging of the internal organs. Ning Shu couldn't figure out why Gong Rong's internal organs were aging. Of course, Ning Shu wouldn't save Gong Rong. As long as Gong Rong didn't die in her hands, it would be fine. Besides, she couldn't save her. After eating, Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed, digesting and conserving her energy for the night. Gong Rong obediently lay beside Ning Shu and slept. He felt that Gong Rong was getting more and more sleepy. Ning Shu cultivated while paying attention to the time. When it was 8:00 in the evening, Ning Shu woke Gong Rong up. "We're going to exchange now." Ning Shu brought Gong Rong to the big shopping mall. It was summer now. Many people went to the mall to freeload the air conditioner. The large number of people made Gong Fu a little wary. Ning Shu didn't forget that the Gong family had armed forces. Chapter 1552. When Ning Shu arrived at the shopping mall, he called Gong Fu and told her the location of the shopping mall. He also told her the method of exchange. Gong Rong looked at the people coming and going in the shopping mall. She had a complicated expression on her face. "Why did you come to my shopping mall?" If something happens in the shopping mall, the one who loses is naturally your shopping mall. This shopping mall was under the Gong family's name. If there was a gunfight, the one who loses is also the Gong family. In their own territory, they must have a lot of concerns. Gong Rong suddenly smiled. "Actually, you can be considered a talent. Why do you use this kind of evil method so smoothly?" Ning Shu smiled and said, "Thank you for the compliment. Our Gong family can still afford to lose. Gong Rong said proudly. Ning Shu stretched out his index finger and waved it. No, no, after you were kidnapped, no, after you went out with me, your sister was appointed to take charge of the group. There will definitely be people in the group who will not accept her. If she makes any mistake, she will be caught and not let go. Your sister doesn't dare. Ning Shu leisurely sat on the bench. If you didn't travel around the world with me, your plan would be to slowly push your sister to the position of the group's controller, using the rest of his life to create a strong position for his sister. But plans can't keep up with changes. Su Xian, who participated in the game, sacrificed her soul. Ning Shu wanted to complete the task as much as possible. The client's mother was the biggest part of this task. Even if the other parts were completed, the completion rate was at most 50%. It was still considered a failure. Ning Shu did so much for the client's mother. Gong Rong squinted her eyes, covering the ripples in her eyes. She quietly sat beside Ning Shu. The two of them didn't speak. The atmosphere was calm. It couldn't be said to be serious or relaxed. Ning Shu suddenly asked, "Why do you always dress as a woman? Is it because of your illness?" Gong Rong indifferently grunted in acknowledgement. Ning Shu looked at his watch. It was already 8:30. What was this guy doing? Ning Shu said in advance not to call the police. Otherwise, he would detonate the bomb hidden in the shopping mall. Bombs and such were purely for the sake of scaring people. Gong Fu arrived late. She was dressed neatly and looked very imposing. There were several tall and strong men behind her. Ning Shu scanned them with his spiritual power and found that they had guns at their waists. Two men were driving a pale-faced woman. Ning Shu recognized that this was the face in his memory and immediately used his spiritual force to penetrate the skin of the client's mother to see her illness. Su Xian's mother's two kidneys were yellow in color. The color was mottled, and they looked like stones instead of flesh. Ning Shu stood up and waved his hand. Here, even Gong Rong couldn't help but twitch her mouth. Did this look like a hostage exchange? It was as if she was waiting for her best friend to go shopping. Gong Fu was the first to see her brother. Her beautiful hair had been shaved, causing Gong Fu to frown uncontrollably. She looked at Ning Shu with an unfriendly gaze. Gong Fu walked over, and Ning Shu pulled Gong Rong to greet her. Your person is intact. Ning Shu pushed Gong Rong to Gong Fu, and then took Su Xian's mother from the two tall and strong bodyguards. Mom. Ning Shu supported Su Xian's mother. Her face was pale. Ning Shu forced a smile. Ning Shu crouched down and carried Su Xian's mother on his back. He saw a flash of light and a knife stabbed at her. Ning Shu dodged the knife and took out something with a button. If she pressed the button, the mall would explode. Gong Fu's face changed. She gritted her teeth and said, "Let her go." Ning Shu carried Su Xian's mother on his back and ran quickly. He gathered qi in his dantian and reached a taxi parked on the side of the road. Ning Shu quickly put Su Xian's mother in the taxi. Then he closed the door. Su Xian, save me. Gong Rong ran quickly to Ning Shu's side. Ning Shu quickly said, "Driver, drive." He's calling you. The driver asked in confusion. Ning Shu's face was cold. I don't know him. Gong Rong ran quickly, but his body trembled as if he had been shot. Someone must have installed a silencer and wanted to kill Gong Rong. But what did this have to do with her? Su Xian, damn woman, save me. Gong Rong held his arm and chased after the car. Ning Shu said calmly, "Driver, we're in a hurry. Please hurry." Didn't you hear someone calling you? The driver asked hesitantly. Ning Shu shook his head. You're hallucinating. I didn't hear anything. The driver looked at Ning Shu's righteous face through the rearview mirror and was speechless. The driver stepped on the accelerator and sped up. Soon, he lost Gong Rong. Gong Rong was speechless. Fuck, this woman is so cruel. Gong Rong was dizzy. Blood flowed from his fingers, and he could only keep running. Suddenly, a hand reached out and pulled him over, covering his mouth with the other hand. Gong Rong's heart was pounding in his heart. Ning Shu released his mental power to see if there was any tracking device on Gong Rong. Then, he carried Gong Rong and ran quickly. Gong Rong, whose head was facing down, was speechless. He was about to run out of blood after this torment. Ning Shu arrived at a small hotel. This hotel was very remote. Unlike the previous one, there weren't even any street lights around. Ning Shu entered the room. Mother Su was sitting on the bed. Seeing Ning Shu come back, she was relieved and quickly closed the door. Ning Shu violently threw Gong Rong onto the bed, which happened to fall on her injured arm. Gong Rong was in so much pain that she almost howled in pain. Be gentle. Gong Rong's skin was so good that even Mother Su felt sorry for him. Ning Shu went downstairs to buy some medical supplies. He was going to remove the bullet from Gong Rong's arm. Gong Rong was weak to begin with. When Ning Shu came back from shopping, Gong Rong was already unconscious. His face was pale. Mother Su asked, "Is he okay?" Well, girls like to lie to themselves. How could he be okay after losing so much blood? Ning Shu tore up the bed sheets and tied Gong Rong up to prevent him from struggling. Then, he took off the socks on his feet and stuffed them into Gong Rong's mouth. It was going to hurt, so he didn't want to scream. Mother Su was speechless. Her child. Ning Shu disinfected the syringe with alcohol and released his mental power to check Gong Rong's arm. Mental power was really a good thing. "Mom, help me press his arm," Ning Shu said to Mother Su. Mother Su was a little weak. "Xin, let's take him to the hospital." Ning Shu smiled. "Mom, trust me. It's okay." Ning Shu accurately found the bullet's location and put a clip into Gong Rong's bullet hole. Gong Rong woke up from the pain when he touched the wound. He struggled with all his might, sweating profusely. The veins on his face and neck were bulging. He looked terrifying. Ning Shu clamped the bullet and took it out. Chapter 1553. Ning Shu took the bullet out of Gong Rong in a very rough way. He didn't use any anesthetic. He stuck a clip into the flesh and took out the bullet. Gong Rong passed out from the pain. Ning Shu put the bullet on the bedside table. Ning Shu wrapped Gong Rong's arm with gauze. Mrs. Su saw the bullet and trembled. "Who is he? How did he get shot?" Ordinary people were afraid of trouble, especially with guns. Ning Shu wiped the blood from the wound. "I don't know him. He seems to be a rich man." Mrs. Su looked at Ning Shu. "Why did you pick up your hair and dress up like a boy?" I just wanted to change my style. I think it's more refreshing this way." It wasn't something that could be explained in a few sentences. It was better not to let Mrs. Su know. Mrs. Su's face turned even paler. Ning Shu reached out and rubbed the acupuncture points on Mrs. Su's waist. Kidney disease was most likely due to insufficient kidney energy. Mrs. Su didn't look very pretty. She was overworked and had fine lines under her eyes. Her skin was sallow and haggard. There was no money for a kidney transplant for Mrs. Su. Besides, Mrs. Su was discharged halfway. Even if there was money, it wouldn't be her turn. Ning Shu rubbed Mrs. Su's waist. Mrs. Su felt her waist was warm and comfortable. As he rubbed, she fell asleep on the other bed. Ning Shu injected a little bit of spirit energy into Mrs. Su. Because she had only cultivated a little bit of spirit energy. There was too little spirit energy in the modern world. He hoped that this bit of spirit energy would be enough to support Mrs. Su's body. Ning Shu crushed Ning Shu's anti-inflammatory medicine into powder and mixed it in warm water for Gong Rong to drink. After that, every once in a while, he would feel that he had a fever. If he had a fever, Ning Shu could only send him to the hospital. The 4-drip didn't work. Ning Shu couldn't wait to mock Gong Rong. He mocked Gong Rong for wasting his time. Along the way, Gong Rong had a fever a few times. Ning Shu fed him medicine and anti-inflammatory medicine whenever he had a fever. Occasionally, Mother Su would ask Ning Shu to wipe Gong Rong's body to make him feel better. It was mainly because Mrs. Su felt that a young man lying on the bed was quite pitiful, especially such a handsome young man. Ning Shu did as he was told, because the smell of Gong Rong's sweat was really pungent. Not for Gong Rong, but for the living environment. Gong Rong slept for 2 days before she woke up. She felt something in her mouth and an indescribable smell lingered at the tip of her nose. It was also a little salty. When Gong Rong was unconscious, Ning Shu did not take off his socks. Mother Su wanted to take it off, but Ning Shu said, "Don't. If she wakes up and can't take the pain, she'll bite her tongue." Every time Ning Shu fed her the medicine, she would stuff it in his mouth again. Besides, her socks were not dirty. Mother Su took after her daughter. After all, her daughter was a university student and had read more books than her. So, Gong Rong woke up with something in her mouth. Ning Shu stood by the bed and looked down at Gong Rong. Gong Rong stared straight at Ning Shu with an indifferent expression. Ning Shu was speechless. What kind of scene was this? It was as if hugging her thigh and thanking her for saving his life was the right way to open up at this moment. Ning Shu also stared at Gong Rong. Gong Rong was speechless. Why didn't you take the thing out of her mouth? Her mouth was full, and she couldn't even move her tongue. Ning Shu was very unhappy that he had run back to save such a person. Ning Shu took the sock out of Gong Rong's mouth and the first thing he said was, "Is this a rag?" Ning Shu shook his head, and Gong Rong's expression relaxed. Ning Shu said, "This is a sock." Gong Rong's face turned even paler. Her eyes rolled back and she almost fainted. Ning Shu sat down and punched Gong Rong's chest. "Don't faint. I have something to tell you." Gong Rong's ribs seemed to have broken after being punched by Ning Shu. Gong Rong really didn't faint this time, but she had lost too much blood. Her face was so pale that it was almost transparent. "While my mother is out, let's talk about the reward for saving your life. I believe that your life should be worth a lot," Ning Shu said with a smile. Did she really think that she would save Gong Rong if she ate too much? She needed money for Mother Su's surgery. After the surgery, she still had to take medicine. It was not a small expense. At the very most, the client was only 22 years old and hadn't even graduated from university. Now that she urgently needed to solve the problem of money, did she really think that she would sacrifice herself for others? Gong Rong asked weakly, "You saved me for money?" Ning Shu looked at her from the corner of her eyes. "Why else do you think? Is it because of our friendship? Don't forget, you're an upper-class person, and I'm a lower-class person. What friendship can there be between us?" Gong Rong asked, "How much? How much do you think your life is worth?" Ning Shu kicked the ball to Gong Rong. Gong Rong asked again, "How long have I been unconscious?" 2 days and 3 nights. "I served you," Ning Shu said. Gong Rong looked at her bandaged arm and sighed faintly. "I might not be able to give you the money. My black card might have been frozen." Ning Shu. "Fuck, why are your shooting skills so bad? Why didn't I hit your head directly?" Ning Shu immediately turned hostile. Gong Rong's eyelids twitched. "Actually, I'm also someone with private property. So. Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at her indifferently. Even if it's for your sister, you should be generous and die. Why are you running away? Ning Shu sneered. Gong Rong's face was deathly pale. Even her lips were pale and dry. Ning Shu turned a blind eye to it. Gong Rong suddenly smiled. Fu did very well. She could even kill me, not to mention others. This is the only way to protect the SR group and survive among the pack of wolves and tigers. Ning Shu applauded. She was the world's best brother. Ning Shu was gloating. It was probably because Gong Rong's appearance as a man gave Gong Fu too much pressure. In addition, she had just taken control of the group not long ago. At this time, Gong Rong went back as a man. It would definitely be very disadvantageous for Gong Fu, who had just taken control of the group. Can you get me some water? I'm too thirsty. Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu. Gong Rong now was really pitiful and exceptionally pitiful. You have no value at all now. You're a piece of trash. I won't give you any water, Ning Shu said coldly. Strictly speaking, she and Gong Rong were on opposite sides of the spectrum. This matter was not over yet. In the future, she might be dragged into this accident. Fuck. Ning Shu glanced at Gong Rong. Previously, when these siblings were deeply in love, she was unlucky. Now that the siblings had fallen out, she was very likely to be the scapegoat. Ning Shu's gaze on Gong Rong became more and more unfriendly. Gong Rong couldn't help but move her body. However, the moment she moved, her arm hurt. Gong Rong was in so much pain that her face turned pale. Ning Shu smiled and said, "Don't be afraid. I won't do anything to you." Chapter 1554. Gong Rong felt that this woman was not like other women. She was compassionate, sentimental, and resolute in doing things. She was resolute, or stubborn, but she also looked unrestrained, more carefree than other women. She was not a woman that ordinary men could control. Gong Rong had no doubt that this woman would throw him out of the window. Gong Rong said helplessly, "If you need money, I can give you money." Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. "I don't see any money. When I recover, I'll give you the change," Gong Rong said. "I'm a businessman. I still have this bit of integrity." Ning Shu tooted. "It's because you're a businessman that I don't believe you. I don't believe a word of a capitalist." Ning Shu said coldly, "Gong Rong, don't challenge my bottom line. Maybe I'll get some benefits if I hand you over to Gong Fu." Gong Rong was speechless. This girl should have some integrity. She definitely wouldn't get any benefits. Gong Rong was relieved to hear Ning Shu's words. This girl didn't look stupid. She definitely wouldn't do such a suicidal thing. With a click, the door handle turned. Mother Su came back. Her mental strength looked much better. Mother Su was carrying a snack box. Seeing that Gong Rong was awake, she immediately said, "You're awake." Gong Rong replied weakly, "Hello, Auntie." "Oh, your lips are dry. Pour him a glass of water." Mother Su said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He poured a glass of water from the pot and fed it to Gong Rong. Gong Rong's eyes shone brightly. He looked very smug. Mother Su put the food on the small table and asked Gong Rong, who was lying on the bed, "Are you okay? I think you should go to the hospital. After all, you're so badly injured." She was implying that Gong Rong should leave. Gong Rong's expression stiffened. He said, "My parents are abroad. There's no one to help me with anything at the hospital." How could Gong Luo appear at the hospital openly? Now that he was being hunted by Gong Fu, even if he had to die, he couldn't have anything to do with Gong Fu. As long as he did it, there would be traces. Gong Rong didn't want to die in Gong Fu's hands. If someone found out, his death could be used against Gong Fu. Su Xian was a good target, if he died in Su Xian's hands. Ning Shu turned around and met Gong Rong's eyes. His eyes were clear as he stared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu walked to the bedside and placed his hand on Gong Rong's arm. With a slight pressure, Gong Rong's face turned even paler and trembled. "You'd better not play any tricks with me. Even if you do, you'll be making a loss," Ning Shu said coldly. Gong Rong forced a smile. "I'm already in this state. What can I scheme? You think too badly of me. It's not that I think of you as a bad person, but you are a bad person to begin with." Ning Shu poked Gong Rong's wound with his finger. Blood gushed out of the wound. Ning Shu exclaimed, "You're bleeding. I'll change the gauze for you." Gong Rong. Ning Shu cut the bloody gauze. It was difficult to heal a bullet wound, especially in Gong Rong's condition. "Let's eat when you're done," Mother Su said. Mother Su let Ning Shu eat while she fed Gong Rong. Gong Rong was good-looking and called her auntie softly. Even though Mother Su felt that this man was not simple, she still grinned. After eating, Gong Rong fell asleep. It was not easy for him to hold on until now. Seeing that Gong Rong had fallen asleep, Mother Su said to Ning Shu, who was cleaning up the small table, "Although this child is good-looking, he was shot. You should send him to the hospital. I hope you can find an ordinary person. He's not suitable." Mother Su did not forget that this man had called her daughter's name in the taxi. It meant that the two of them knew each other. Ning Shu really admired Mother Su's imagination. "She and Gong Rong?" Ning Shu nodded and said, "Don't worry. There's nothing going on between me and him." The two of them were scheming against each other, and then they looked happy on the surface. "Mom, let me give you a massage," Ning Shu said to Mother Su, changing the topic. What did it have to do with Gong Rong? If it did, it would be creepy. At most, it was a hostage. Ning Shu rubbed his hands, making his palms and fingers hot. Then he massaged Mother Su's acupuncture points. Mother Su lay on the bed and said, Xin, it's very comfortable. I feel much better. Then I'll massage you every day." Mother Su fell asleep. Ning Shu covered her with the quilt, then turned on the TV to watch the news and lowered the volume. Since Gong Fu wanted to kill Gong Rong, then there should be news. SR Group held a press conference. Gong Fu held back her tears and said that her sister had been killed by the kidnapper. Now the kidnapper was on the run. She hoped that the kidnapper and murderer could be arrested as soon as possible. Ning Shu's picture was also shown, and he looked like a short-haired boy. Then it was announced that Gong Fu was officially in charge of SR Group. She would inherit the management of SR Group from her sister and bring SR Group to greater heights. Ning Shu. She had indeed become the scapegoat. She knew that Gong Rong's death would be blamed on her. Ning Shu stared at Gong Fu on the TV. She was beautiful, cold, and elite. Just like her brother, she was a scheming person. Ning Shu turned around and saw that Gong Rong had woken up and was watching TV. Ning Shu sneered. Gong Rong said, "You shouldn't have kidnapped me. Then there wouldn't have been such a chain reaction." Ning Shu snorted. If she hadn't escaped, she would have killed all the people on the island. She would have been the winner of the game with 19 lives. In order to get 10 million, she had killed all the other contestants. It was reasonable and crazy. She would have to face the judicial power of a country. Go to hell. Go to hell. Comparing 19 lives to Gong Rong's single life, he felt that kidnapping Gong Rong was the better choice. Come on, let's hurt each other. It was not certain who would win or lose until the last moment. You siblings are really interesting, Ning Shu said to Gong Rong calmly. Gong Rong pursed her lips. This is the best way to deal with it. Damn you. Ning Shu took off his shoe and smashed it on Gong Rong's arm. Gong Rong's wound was bleeding again. The best way? Ning Shu looked at him coldly. I went from a kidnapper to a kidnapper and murderer. I am wanted by the country. This is the best way for you to deal with it. And my mother. She was sick, but she still had to watch me go to prison. This pair of siblings were like this. As long as they achieved their goal, it was fine. They never cared about others. After all, they were all inferior people. Chapter 1555. They were at the top of the food chain. Gong Rong was silent. Mother Su's eyelashes fluttered, and she was about to wake up. Ning Shu quickly turned off the TV. She didn't want Mother Su to know. She knew that it wouldn't do her any good. Instead, it made her anxious. The daughter she was so proud of had become a murderer. Mother Su opened her eyes and saw Ning Shu's cold face. She asked, "What's wrong?" Ning Shu smiled and shook her head. "Nothing. We've been out for a while. Let's go home. I feel much better. Don't waste money on hospitalization." Ning Shu immediately said, "We can't go back." "What's wrong?" Mother Su was surprised. Why couldn't they go home? Ning Shu said, "Let's stay here for a while. Besides, there's a patient. There must be police around their house." Ning Shu didn't want to be caught by the police. If that happened, it would really be a disaster. Even if she was wronged, so what? Something could happen at any time in there. There was too much room for manipulation. Not everyone could be cleared of wrongdoing. Gong Fu killed so many people. Although she didn't do it herself, she was the one who guided them. What's wrong with her, isn't she? That was the difference. It's okay. We can take him home. Mother Su wanted to say take Gong Rong home, but Ning Shu interrupted her. Ning Shu rolled her eyes and thought of an excuse. "Mom, come out with me." Mother Su looked at her daughter's strange behavior with some confusion. Ning Shu closed the door, and only Gong Rong was left in the room. Ning Shu said to Mother Su, "Mom, we can't let a wolf into our house. Look, that person was shot. It means that he was being chased. If we take him to our house, those people will definitely go after him. Knives and swords have no eyes. What if they hurt us?" Mother Su looked a little scared and nodded. Yes, we can't go home now." Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief. She felt so tired. He didn't know how long he could keep this a secret. "We won't go home until he's gone." Mother Su grabbed Ning Shu's arm tightly. "You have to be careful." Ning Shu nodded and pushed the door open. Gong Rong glanced at Ning Shu but didn't say anything. At night, Gong Rong had a fever again, and his wound was festering. Ning Shu rudely rubbed disinfectant on Gong Rong's arm and gave him water and medicine. After that, Ning Shu gave Mother Su a massage. Mother Su realized that after being massaged by her daughter, she could sleep better at night and her body felt more comfortable. Ning Shu stayed by Gong Rong's side. Even if Gong Rong had to die, she couldn't die here. She wasn't going to take the blame. Moreover, Gong Rong would always return to SR Group. Even if you have to die in front of everyone, at your job. Ning Shu released his spiritual power to check the condition of Gong Rong's internal organs. He seemed to have aged a little. The color of his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys weren't bright red, but dark. Moreover, Gong Rong had cirrhosis of the liver. His body couldn't hold on much longer. Especially this injury, it made Gong Rong's situation even worse. Ning Shu coldly withdrew his spiritual power. Gong Rong probably wore women's clothes for his sister. As the heir of a group, it was known that he was sick and couldn't die of old age. It would have been better to say that it was a girl from the beginning. With Gong Rong as a precedent, there would be less resistance for Gong Fu to inherit the group. Ning Shu curled his lips. He didn't sympathize with Gong Rong at all. Her current situation was very miserable. She didn't have any extra sympathy for the person who caused her to be in this state. The Gong family only had 2 daughters, Gong Rong and Gong Fu. However, there were other uncles and cousins in the Gong family who were eyeing them covetously. Ning Shu curled his lips. Money could make you into a special class, but what if you died? After a night of torment, Gong Rong's fever finally subsided. There was a sickly red on his pale face. When Gong Rong woke up, she looked uncomfortable. Ning Shu poured some water for Gong Rong to drink. Gong Rong drank the water from the spoon and looked at Ning Shu. Didn't you hate me? Why? I still served you, right? Ning Shu continued. That was because I wanted to see you in pain. Gong Rong nodded. Why? Because I was afraid of being charged with murder. You can play with people and kill people without restraint, but I can't. Ning Shu said indifferently. He scooped another spoonful of warm water and fed it to Gong Rong. Kidnapper and murderer. These stains have always been on my record. Are you very proud that I can't do anything to you? Ning Shu asked calmly. Gong Rong narrowed her eyes and didn't say anything. You're not going back to the Gong family? Ning Shu asked. Gong Rong shook her head. I'm already a dead person. I won't cause trouble for her. Ning Shu splashed the water from the cup on Gong Rong's face. Gong Rong was stunned. Ning Shu put down the cup and wiped Gong Rong's face with a tissue. He said calmly, You make me very angry. Gong Rong was speechless. He had never seen such a temperamental woman. He could never guess what she was going to do next. Do you still want water? Ning Shu asked. Gong Rong shook her head. In the end, Mother Su found out about Ning Shu. After all, Mother Su went out to buy things and saw a wanted poster. It was easy for her to find out. Mother Su's expression was unsightly. When she came back, she grabbed Ning Shu's hand. How could you do such a thing? What should I do? Oh my God. Mother Su collapsed on the ground. No wonder her daughter always told her to be careful. She thought it was because of the injured man. So it was because of this. Ning Shu reached out and helped Mother Su up from the ground. Mother Su hit Ning Shu with her hand. How could you do this? How did I teach you? Mother Su's fist didn't hit Ning Shu hard, but she broke down emotionally. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. He hugged Mother Su and put his hand on her back to inject some spiritual energy. There was no more spiritual energy in her dantian. There was only the power of the sun flame left. The power of the sun flame was destructive and had no effect on nourishing the body. Mother Su held back her tears for a while and calmed down. Wiping her tears, Ning Shu asked, What happened? Ning Shu glanced at Gong Rong and told her everything. He told her everything, including participating in the adventure game for 10 million and kidnapping Gong Rong. Ning Shu's mouth was dry. He drank some water to moisten his throat. That's what happened. Mother Su's eyes widened and she murmured, How could there be such an animal in the world? The Gongs are all animals. Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong and curled her lips, saying, Isn't he a beast? Chapter 1556. Gong Rong, who was called a bastard, didn't change his expression, as if they weren't talking about him. And Mother Su didn't know that the bastard was right in front of her. Mother Su grabbed Ning Shu's hand tightly. Then did you kill someone from the Gong family? Ning Shu sneered. Rich families are fighting, and they're pushing the crime of murder to me. I didn't kill anyone. Mother Su took a deep breath. I knew you wouldn't kill anyone. Go and tell them you didn't kill anyone. Mom, don't worry. I'll find a way. Ning Shu comforted Mother Su. She was going around saying that she was innocent and wasn't a murderer. It was useless. She was walking right into a trap. What she wanted was for Gong Rong to appear in front of the public. Mother Su was too naive. This kind of thing couldn't be explained easily, especially when there were so many people holding you down and forcing you to eat shit. You couldn't beat them. 2 fists couldn't beat 4 hands. Mother Su was worried. Ning Shu said calmly, Mom, don't worry. I'll be fine. I have a way. Even though Ning Shu promised again and again, Mother Su was still very worried. Mother Su calmed down a little and then remembered that there was someone else in the room. She said to Gong Rong, Look, my daughter is in trouble. Why don't you leave? The environment here isn't good for recovery. Auntie, it's okay. I didn't hear anything. I won't tell anyone. Gong Rong said firmly, Besides, you saved me. Mother Su smiled reluctantly. Because of her worry, Mother Su's health wasn't very good. Ning Shu sighed. He took something sharp to stimulate her acupuncture points and massaged her every day. Ning Shu said to Gong Rong, You said you'll give me money. Where is it? I'll definitely give it to you when I'm better, Gong Rong said. Don't use this method to brush me off, Ning Shu said coldly. Gong Rong said coldly, Don't look at me with such resentful eyes. You're the one who joined the game for money. I'm a bastard. This face of yours is called the crusade of the weak, powerless and pale. Ning Shu chuckled. One day, you will also feel the pain of powerlessness. Gong Rong only smiled faintly. Because of Ning Shu, Mother Su rarely went out, so she bought some things and put them in the house. With nothing to do, Ning Shu watched TV. Anyway, Mother Su already knew. He switched to a financial channel that was broadcasting the news. In the picture, a woman was lying on a stretcher and being sent to an ambulance. This woman's face was captured. It was Gong Fu. Gong Rong, who was sitting on the bed, shuddered and stared at the TV. Gong Rong's pale face turned even paler. Her body seemed to have been struck by lightning and was fixed in place. Some reporters reported that the person in charge of SR Group had suddenly vomited blood and fainted during a meeting. The corners of Ning Shu's lips curled up. Finally, it was time. He didn't believe that Gong Rong would be able to sit still. Gong Rong closed her eyes and stabilized her emotions. In fact, Gong Rong had some suspicions that this was Gong Fu's act to lure her out. If that was the case, Gong Rong decided to wait and see. Gong Rong felt that Gong Fu had made a stupid move. Wasn't doing such a thing giving others something to use against her. Maybe she would use the excuse of her poor health to seize power. When she came back, she would probably be a figurehead. How could Gong Fu be so stupid? The more Gong Rong thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Every day, she waited for new news. In the end, the news came out that Gong Fu's kidney had ruptured and her internal organs had been damaged to a certain extent. A notice of critical illness had been issued. When Gong Rong saw the news, it was as if she had been struck by lightning. She lifted the quilt and ran away. Obviously, she was going back to SR Group. Ning Shu had said that Gong Rong would definitely go back. Seeing Gong Rong run away in a hurry, Mother Du asked, What's wrong with her? She must have something to do and left first. Ning Shu smiled and turned off the TV. Mom, we have to change places too, Ning Shu said to Mother Su. Mother Su quickly took out women's clothes, a wig, and some makeup tools from her bag. Ning Shu changed into the clothes, put on the wig, and put on some makeup for himself. Then, she and Mother Su left the small hotel and stayed there for nearly half a month. Xin, where are we going now? They couldn't go home. The police were still looking for Xin. Her daughter was already at a good age, but because of her illness, she had to go down this path. Mother Sue was in pain. She even wanted to die so that she wouldn't be a burden to her daughter. Ning Shu found a suburb this time, a very remote place. Anyway, they would hide here and there for a while. If they really couldn't do it, they would live in the sewers. Ning Shu was not afraid, but he was afraid that Mother Sue's body wouldn't be able to take it. Gong Rong returned to the Gong family in women's clothes. People who saw him thought that he was a zombie. Gong Rong had to come back. He had to come back to stabilize SR Group. Gong Rong's appearance shocked many people. After all, his sister had said that she had been killed. Gong Rong's face was pale, without a trace of blood. No one knew about the injury on his arm. He went to the hospital to see Gong Fu. Gong Fu was lying on the bed. She looked almost dead. Gong Rong didn't understand. How could a healthy little girl vomit blood? It was just a board meeting. A few shareholders didn't agree with her proposal. How could she vomit blood just like that? The doctor's explanation was that she was under too much pressure. Anyway, her body's illness couldn't be explained. It was caused by too much pressure. He had already paved the way for Gong Fu to lie flat. He didn't expect Gong Fu to fall like this. She might die because her kidney was ruptured. She had already undergone surgery. It was just a matter of whether she could survive. Gong Rong looked tired. With the injuries on his body, his pale face turned gray. Gong Rong's sudden appearance made the reporters very excited. They asked how Gong Rong came back alive. Wasn't he killed? Why did your sister say that you were killed? Did your sister stop trying to save you? The questions these reporters asked were enough to write a TV series about the grudges of the rich. It was nothing more than the two sisters fighting for the SR Group. Even Gong Rong's kidnapping was questioned. No matter what Gong Rong said, whether she was kidnapped or not, it was a slap in the face to Gong Fu, who was lying on the bed. If she wasn't kidnapped, why did you make such a big fuss? She was kidnapped. Your sister wasn't dead yet. You said that your sister was killed. Either this kidnapping had other meanings. Therefore, the unconscious Gong Rong was in trouble. Gong Rong looked straight ahead as if he was looking at someone through the void. He said in a woman's voice, "I was kidnapped." In front of the TV, Ning Shu and Gong Rong's eyes met. He smiled faintly. "I'm such a good kidnapper. I let you escape." Chapter 1557. Ning Shu stared at Gong Rong, who was facing the camera. Gong Rong was dressed in women's clothing and looked beautiful. Her red lips slowly spat out, "I've been kidnapped." Ning Shu was not surprised at all. Gong Rong could only say that she was kidnapped. This was the best for Gong Fu, who was on the hospital bed. Gong Rong's face was pale and transparent. She said to the camera, "Gong Fu thinks that I've been killed." There was a period of time when the kidnappers didn't contact her at all. She thought that I might have been killed. Gong Rong tried her best to get Gong Fu out of this matter. Ning Shu couldn't help but applaud. Gong Rong was really a good brother. Being chased by his sister, he didn't complain at all. He probably wanted to wait for his sister to wake up and let her take over the company. It was good to spoil his sister. Or he was about to die and realized that there was nothing to be calculative about with his sister. On the contrary, he was gratified that his sister could even kill her closest brother. She would definitely be able to protect the SR Group. The family's interests were paramount. "Then who kidnapped you? How did you escape?" Gong Rong said, "Someone helped me." "Was the college student Su Xian the one who kidnapped you?" It was impossible for a college student to kidnap someone from the Gong family. "Did the bodyguards of the Gong family eat shit?" Gong Rong said lightly, "No comment." Ning Shu in front of the TV, damn, Ning Shu really wanted to smash the TV. Let him say that she wasn't the one who kidnapped him. This no comment really made people's imagination run wild. Ning Shu sneered. Gong Rong really couldn't take any losses. Gong Rong got into the car under the protection of the bodyguards. Some reporters chased after the car. Ning Shu saw Gong Rong's face from the TV. Even if he didn't use his mental strength to scan Gong Rong's internal organs, he could see that Gong Rong's body couldn't hold on much longer. His eyebrows were faintly blue. Ning Shu went to the internet cafe to look for information about the adventure game. The final winner of the adventure game should have been announced by now. With such a tragic murder, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. A month had already passed, but there was still no news. Perhaps it was because she had kidnapped Gong Rong, which made things more complicated. Gong Fu directly let this matter end quietly. Then the people on the island might all be dead. Ning Shu chuckled. He didn't know why the other 19 people, no, 18 people's family members didn't make a fuss. Could it be that the other family members did not know that their own family members had gone to participate in the show? If a murderer came forward, all the family members would have a target to vent their anger on, and that was the inhumane murderer. Ning Shu was still wondering if he could use this as an opening to attack the Gong family. It was fine if some things were not exposed, but if they were exposed, it would not be so easy to solve. If she were to reveal what happened on the island, Gong Rong would first suspect her and the little black girl. Forget about the little black girl, she was so innocent. Gong Rong would not suspect the little black girl. She still had the kidnapper's cap on her head, so she couldn't be impulsive. Ning Shu propped up his chin and tapped the table with his finger. She was waiting for Gong Fu to die. Gong Rong had schemed for so long, but it was all for naught. Ning Shu called the family members who participated in the show. Your family members have been missing for almost 2 months. Don't you have any suspicions? Some family members said that they went to do the show and would only be back after some time. Ning Shu said directly, the adventure survival game only lasts for a month. My child is not back yet. I don't know what's going on. I've already called the police, but the police did not respond. I also don't know where they are recording the show. I'm so anxious. I have nightmares every night. I dream that my child is drenched in blood. Ning Shu used an old, anxious, and uncomfortable voice, which made the listeners feel uneasy as well. Ning Shu called the family members one by one. A few family members called the police. Their child had not appeared for so long. Could it be that he had been kidnapped? They even went to the TV station to make a fuss. The TV station could only say that it was fine. The family members were even more anxious and said, then let them call me. I don't feel at ease if I don't hear my son's voice. The staff of the TV station were at a loss. They were only in charge of recruiting people. They did not care about anything else. Where could they find people now? They are doing a closed recording. When the recording is done, they will naturally contact you. The TV station's evasive actions made people feel uneasy. There were always family members who went to the police station and the TV station to make a fuss. There were also many people who posted on the internet, asking where these people had gone. It had already been 2 months. The show had not been released and the people had disappeared. It had already attracted a lot of attention. The TV station had no choice but to come to the SR group to find Gong Rong. You took them away. Now you have to return them. Gong Rong rubbed her eyebrows and looked at the news fermenting on the internet. She said to the staff of the TV station, I will deal with this matter. The family members were getting more and more anxious. When they were getting more and more uneasy, there was finally news. But it was bad news. The police posted on Weibo. The general content was that 10 million yuan was used as a reward. But they did not expect that the perverted doctor would be tempted by the 10 million yuan and commit murder. They also posted a few photos. There were housewives who had their breasts cut off, lawyers who had their necks cut off, and hooligans who had their knees cut off. Anyway, everyone had died a miserable death. Some people's bodies could not even be found. The explanation given by the police was that the nature of the matter was too bad. The police had been involved in the investigation for a long time and had not made it public. And that doctor was now locked up in prison. Ning Shu let out a long breath. This time, the doctor was the scapegoat. When the news came out, it caused a huge uproar. Everyone despised the doctor for being a beast with a human face. Even the doctor's family members were implicated. At this time, Gong Rong stood up and said to the camera, "The SR Group is also responsible for this matter. Originally, we wanted to sponsor and let the group's products sell better. That's why we used 10 million yuan to reward each contestant. But we did not expect that some people could not resist the temptation and did such a thing. From now on, I represent the SR Group to apologize to the public. In the future, we will not sponsor adventure shows. The 10 million yuan reward will be used to compensate the victims' families. In addition, we will add another 10 million yuan." After Gong Rong's statement, the TV station also expressed their attitude. They admitted that it was their fault. They did not monitor properly and chose such a ruthless person. Blah, blah, blah. Ning Shu could not help but applaud. They were so cunning. As for the TV station, they must have received benefits. They would not say that these people were chosen for Gong Rong and her sister. Chapter 1558. The police released the death list, and Su Xian's name was on the list. In other words, she was now dead, and her body hadn't even been found. She might have been killed and thrown into the sea to feed the fish. In the legal sense, she was dead. Ning Shu was now an illegal resident. Ning Shu sneered. "Mom, go get the pension too." "It's a waste not to take it," Ning Shu said to Mother Su. Mother Su shook her head. "I'm not going. I don't want SR Group's dirty money." Ning Shu was speechless. "Go get it. 20 million. Each family can get more than 1 million. You really don't want it?" With the money, Mother Su would have the money for the surgery. This was obviously Gong Rong's way of appeasing the family. This was actually a game of money. He probably wanted to teach his sister that money could do a lot of things. She had to learn how to use money to achieve her goals. 20 million was nothing to SR Group, but it could buy so many lives. Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong on the TV with a pained and sincere expression. Who would think that this was the real murderer? But the doctor couldn't deny it. Did he kill anyone? Yes. As for how many he killed as many as he wanted. It was quite cruel. If she hadn't run away, she would be the one being despised now. Ning Shu cared more about her identity. She was now a nobody and had been killed. Gong Rong put her on the death list because he was afraid that she would make trouble again. If her kidnapping was involved, then the incident on the island would also be involved. However, the media wasn't a fool. They quickly connected Su Xian's name to the previous kidnapper, Su Xian. But the police refuted the rumors. They were not the same person. Su Xian had been killed by the doctor on the island. But there were many doubts. Some things weren't very clear. But they didn't dare to continue reporting. Although there was freedom of speech, the higher-ups were still very strict when it came to the media. Soon, the doctor's verdict came out amidst the angry scolding of the crowd. Because the nature of the case was too bad, and the family members were making trouble, the doctor was sentenced to death under the pressure of public opinion. At this time, no matter what the doctor said, things had already come to this. There was no room for negotiation. Soon, the doctor was shot, and the matter was over. Ning Shu thought that perhaps Gong Rong was drinking red wine and smiling. Ning Shu felt a chill in his heart. The power of money really couldn't be underestimated. This was also a kind of power. It was different from the power of lust. It could make people submit, and it could make people greedy. To a certain extent, money was a resource for survival. Mother Su went to collect the pension. When she came back, her eyes widened. So much money had suddenly fallen from the sky. But when she thought of what her daughter had gone through, Mother Su's eyes turned red. She would either be killed or become a psychopathic murderer. Looking at the well-dressed people who worked in SR Group, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Ning Shu did not care. He could perform the surgery as long as he got the money. I'm just worried about my identity. I'm already dead, Ning Shu's mother said. Mrs. Su thought for a moment and said, how about using your sister's name? Ning Shu was very surprised. I have a sister. Your sister died before she was a year old. She had cerebral palsy. Mother Su sighed. Su Chen, Mother Su said. I'll take you to get an ID card. Your sister has cerebral palsy and is a little stupid. You can live as Su Chen from now on. But they don't know that I have a sister. Ning Shu's mother asked. Just say that you grew up in the countryside. Ning Shu's mother gave him a thumbs up. No matter what, he had to get an identity. She didn't know what Gong Rong was thinking. She put her name on the death list. Maybe she thought that it would be easier to deal with her as a dead person. She was the only one who escaped from the island. No, there was also a black girl. However, Xiao Heinyo didn't seem to know much. If Xiao Heinyo was smart enough, she wouldn't have said this. She didn't know if Gong Rong had sent someone to deal with the black girl. Mother Su took Ning Shu to get an ID card. Ning Shu had to pretend that he had cerebral palsy. He tilted his head and walked with a limp. His muscles weren't developed well, and he drooled. In order to have enough saliva, Ning Shu even ate a sour orange. It was so sour that his cheeks hurt. Fortunately, his sister's name was still on the household register. Ning Shu looked at the camera with a dull expression. Ning Shu felt bitter. The photo on the ID card was already ugly. Now he had to pretend to be stupid. He couldn't imagine what the photo on the ID card would look like. After the photo was taken, Ning Shu didn't bother to pretend to be stupid. The police guarding the door also left. Ning Shu and Mother Su could finally go home. But there were no police. There were other annoying people. And they were the client's relatives. Ning Shu looked at the family of 3 guarding the door. Yes, the client's father, his father's wife, and his son. Mother Su looked terrible when she saw her ex-husband. She asked, "What are you doing here?" When Father Su saw Ning Shu, he asked in surprise, "Aren't you dead?" Ning Shu asked, "Do you want me to die?" Mr. Su looked a little uncomfortable. He didn't dare to look at Ning Shu's expression, as if he had a guilty conscience. But his current wife smiled and said, "Xin, it's good that you're okay. Your father was worried about you." Ning Shu's face was cold. "Oh, thank you. What are you doing here?" Mother Su asked coldly. Father Su immediately said, "I'm here to see what's wrong with my daughter." Ning Shu thought for a moment and knew what the couple wanted to do. They probably watched TV and knew that Mother Su had hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in compensation. Flies swarmed over when they smelled blood. It had to be said that the charm of money was too great. Sometimes, family members had to give in the face of money. Some people's greed was infinitely magnified. Su Xian had gone to her father to borrow money to treat her mother's illness. She hadn't given him a single cent. Now that she was here, she probably wanted money. Ning Shu glanced at Father Su's wife. She must have instigated this. Li Shan couldn't help but feel cold when Ning Shu glanced at her. She forced a smile and held her son's hand. Ching, call her sister. The little boy was only 7 or 8 years old. He said directly, she's not my sister. Ning Shu didn't feel anything. There was no need to get angry over a stranger. Well, I don't think you're my brother either. My mother only gave birth to a sister. I don't have a brother. Li Shan looked embarrassed, but she still forced a smile and apologized to Ning Shu. She had to hold back because she wanted something. Li Shan touched her husband's back with her hand and tugged at the corner of his clothes. Chapter 1559. Su Xian's father looked a little troubled, but when he thought of the money and the fact that Su Xian was his daughter, he should have a share, so he spoke up. Xian is my daughter too, so the pension, what does the pension have to do with you? It's Xian's money. Su Xian's mother's expression was fierce. She was resentful and disgusted with her ex-husband. I'm her father, so I can have half of it. Su Xian's father decided to go all out. No matter what, Xian is my daughter. Su Xian's father said shamelessly. Su Xian's mother was furious. Have you done your duty as a father to Xian? Now you have the nerve to ask for money. Don't you have any shame? No one can take away my identity as Su Xian's father, Su Xian's father said firmly. Ning Shu opened the door, and the family swarmed into the house. Ning Shu picked up the landline and called the police. Someone broke into my house and wants to rob me. Yes, I have hundreds of thousands at home. Su Xian's father was speechless. You called the police? Su Xian's father looked at Ning Shu in disbelief. Ning Shu put down the phone. I did call the police. You and Mom have been divorced for more than 10 years, and I gave Mom the money. It's a little embarrassing for you to ask for money at this time. I'm your father. Su Xian's father was so angry that he was panting. Li Shan, Su Xian's stepmother, quickly said, Xian, your father has high blood pressure. You can't be angry. Don't argue with your father. Oh, you're using filial piety to pressure me? Ning Shu looked at Li Shan expressionlessly. This woman was much smarter than her father. Li Shan said, why call the police? It doesn't look good. No matter what, he's still your father. Ning Shu hated this kind of people the most. If you ran away immediately when something happened, then they would swarm over. If you said something, you would be unfilial, and the moral shackles would be on you. Ning Shu said to Su Xian's mother, Mom, sit down and wait for the police. You really are a bad woman. Ching pointed at Ning Shu. Li Shan immediately said, Ching, how can you say that? Then she turned to Ning Shu and said apologetically, Ching is still young. It doesn't matter. I don't intend to forgive him. Ning Shu shrugged. So what if he's young? Li Shan's expression stiffened. She then said, Xin, we also know how you got your money. You're already dead. If you call the police, your identity will be exposed. Ning Shu could tell that Li Shan was threatening her and felt that she had grasped her weakness. Ning Shu was not afraid of her identity being exposed at all. Moreover, she was now Su Chen. Ning Shu was not afraid that she would spread the news. So. Ning Shu shrugged, unmoved. Should I give you the money? This money is for my mother's surgery. You even want to snatch the money to save her life. Ning Shu looked at Li Shan. I know you're a beautiful, gentle, kind, and generous person, but you can't do such a thing. Li Shan was a person who was used to putting on a show. At this time, Ning Shu's words made her face turn red. Soon, the police came. Ning Shu tilted her head and squinted her eyes. She looked like an idiot. She sat on the ground and shouted, they wanted to snatch my mother's money. My mother was the one who did the surgery. Wah wah wah, everyone was speechless. The police ignored Ning Shu and asked Su Xian's mother, who was normal, about the situation. Su Xian's mother told them the story with a sneer. This family was greedy for someone else's dead money. Su Xian's father looked at Ning Shu, who was crying like a child on the ground, and was furious. My daughter is not dead. This is my eldest daughter, Su Xian. They lied to you and cheated you of your money. Su Xian's father spoke without thinking. Li Shan tugged at his clothes. The three members of the Su family were taken to the police station to record their statements. After all, they had filed a report. Su Xian's mother was also there. Ning Shu said, "Stay at home." As soon as they left, Ning Shu began to look for a place to rent online. He couldn't live here anymore. Today, it was his father's house. Tomorrow, it would be his mother's house. It would be his grandmother's uncles who would come to ask for money. All these years, Su Xian's mother had raised her client alone. These people didn't help her. Now that they had some money, they immediately flocked to her. It would be quieter to live somewhere else. When Su Xian's mother returned from the police station, Ning Shu had already packed his things. He said to Su Xian's mother, "I've found a place to live. Let's go look for rentals now." Su Xian's mother took a deep breath. Just as she was about to speak, Ning Shu interrupted her. "Don't think about giving me a little to solve the problem. If I give you once, I'll ask for a second time." He had something to do today. Tomorrow, he would borrow some. "Mom, they can live without this money. If you don't have this money, you'll die. Keep it for the surgery," Ning Shu said to Su Xian's mother. Once the leeches saw blood, they would desperately suck it. Su Xian's mother pursed her lips and nodded. "I'll listen to you." Ning Shu carried 2 bags, went out, locked the door, and left. Ning Shu went to Fang Jie. Fang Jie took Ning Shu to the house that Ning Shu had his eyes on. Although the house wasn't big, the lighting was good. After signing the contract, they moved in. Ning Shu felt that the most important thing was Su Xian's mother's illness. When he had nothing to do, Ning Shu would give her massages and acupuncture. Her illness was very serious. Medicine didn't work, and it would also burden her kidneys. Ning Shu could only massage her acupuncture points. Sometimes, he would give her blood. These were just auxiliary treatments. They were only to prevent Su Xian's mother's condition from worsening. If she wanted to treat it, she could only do a kidney transplant. Ning Shu discussed with Su Xian's mother. "I can't go to university." Her sister, Su Chen, didn't go to school. She died before she was a year old. So she didn't even have a school record now. Su Xian's mother was open-minded. "It's fine if you don't have one. As long as you're safe, you'll find a way out." Ning Shu pursed his lips. She had to start a business to earn money. After all, a successful life was to change a difficult situation. If she succeeded in life, this success would be a little broad. Work could be done slowly. Life planning could wait until the Gong family's matter was resolved. Recently, Gong Rong rarely appeared in front of the screen. She rarely accepted interviews. Ning Shu didn't know how Gong Rong was doing. According to Ning Shu's estimation, Gong Rong's body shouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. But there was no news at all. And there was no news of Gong Fu. Was Gong Fu fine? Or did something happen to Gong Fu but it was kept secret? Ning Shu felt that Gong Fu shouldn't be able to survive. After all, the power of the sun would destroy a person's internal organs and slowly burn them. Gong Fu's life was at stake. Ning Shu paid attention to the news on the finance channel every day. When he had nothing to do, he would check the web to find out about SR Group. Gong Rong could buy so many people's lives with money, but he didn't know if she could buy her sister's life. Chapter 1560. Ning Shu waited for a while, but there was still no news of Gong Fu's death. Could it be that Gong Fu had been saved? Could it be that there was still a hidden master in this world, an immortal or something? Ning Shu felt that it was unlikely. After all, it was the end of the world. There was pitifully little spirit energy. How could there be an immortal? Gong Rong sat on a bench in the hospital corridor with his head in his hands. This was the fourth time the doctor gave him a notice of critical illness. From beginning to end, his sister didn't wake up and didn't open her eyes to look at him. The doctor said that Gong Fu couldn't hold on anymore. The current Gong Fu, if you pressed her abdomen slightly, blood would come out of her mouth. Her internal organs were seriously damaged. Now she was hanging on by one breath. Her heartbeat was weak and she could die at any time. Gong Rong couldn't understand. His sister was healthy. How could her body deteriorate so badly? Gong Rong stood up. His body swayed and he almost fell to the ground. Gong Rong's secretary quickly supported him. "Miss Gong, the patient has passed away." A doctor in a white coat came out and said to him. Gong Rong covered his eyes and walked into the ward with weak steps. Gong Fu on the bed was covered by a white cloth. Gong Rong took a deep breath and removed the white cloth. He saw Gong Fu's ashen face. Gong Rong closed his eyes and covered the white cloth. He was supposed to die. But how could Gong Fu die in front of him? Then all the things he did for Gong Fu while pretending to be a girl since he was young were all in vain. His aging disease was discovered when he was young. After all these years of careful care, living until now was already the limit. Managing the group as a woman was for Gong Fu. Gong Rong's eyes were a bit red. He was powerless, powerless. One day, you will also taste the feeling of powerlessness. Gong Rong covered the white cloth and turned to leave. The news of Gong Fu's death was released. After all, she was the head of the SR group. Such a sudden death would definitely attract attention. First, Gong Rong was kidnapped and killed. Gong Fu was appointed as the head of the SR group. Then Gong Fu fell ill. The former head of the SR group, Gong Rong, suddenly came back from the dead. Now Gong Fu was dead. The onlookers had already imagined all kinds of swords and knives, killing without spilling blood. They just didn't know if Gong Fu would come back from the dead like his sister. She came back to kill her own sister. However, to the disappointment of the onlookers, Gong Fu was really dead. Even her corpse was cremated. He was deader than dead. Gong Rong was almost in a trance as she finished her sister's funeral. His brows were ashen, and he still had to deal with the wolves, tigers, and leopards that harbored malicious intentions. Gong Rong was holding on. Even before she died, she had to find a suitable heir for SR Group. She couldn't let these people take advantage of her. Not long after Gong Fu died, Gong Rong's body couldn't take it anymore. She collapsed and was sent to the hospital to recuperate. Gong Rong's body was already at the end of its life, and this torment would accelerate the process of her death. Ning Shu saw on the news that Gong Fu was dead. Once Gong Fu died, Gong Rong would be half dead. Now that he had dealt with one of them, it was time to deal with Gong Rong. With Gong Rong's current condition, she wouldn't be able to last much longer. Ning Shu stretched and began to look for a good hospital for Mother Su to receive treatment. Mother Su felt that she didn't need to go to the hospital to waste money anymore. However, Ning Shu was firm. Mother Su's illness couldn't be cured with 2 injections. Surgery wasn't a problem. The most important thing was that she should report to the hospital as soon as possible. They would be informed when there was a suitable one. Mother Su shook her head. "Keep the money. I've lived to this age. I don't want to spend this money. It's not worth it. With this money, you can live an easier life in the future. You don't have to waste it on me." Ning Shu was speechless. It's our gain to be able to buy a life with money. There's plenty of money. We can earn it later. Don't you want to see me get married and have children? Yes. Money was a problem for heroes, but now that they had money, why not go to the hospital? How stupid. Then I'll listen to you. Ning Shu paid for the hospital that specialized in kidney transplants for Mother Su. If she didn't stay in the hospital, she would come regularly for dialysis. When she did, she would inform Ning Shu and Mother Su. After that, Ning Shu began to think about her career plan. What should she do without a diploma? Mother Su thought that Ning Shu was good at makeup and asked her to learn how to do it. Ning Shu slapped her thigh. Not bad. Girls were born to be beautiful. They could make themselves beautiful and others beautiful. Moreover, in the age of the internet, a makeup video could make money. If she was doing well, she could do makeup for celebrities. If she wasn't doing well, she could do makeup for corpses to make a living. Makeup was a technical job. It had to be three-dimensional, shaded, and matched with the style of the clothes. These things had to be learned systematically. Ning Shu suddenly thought of a sentence. Lanxiang beauty and hair will make your life brilliant. It became leap soil in an instant. Mother Su saw that Ning Shu agreed and helped to find a school. She even asked Ning Shu if she wanted to study abroad. It was good to have a goal. She could take it slow. Ning Shu turned on the TV regularly every day to watch the news. She wanted to know about Gong Rong's death. There was no news, so Ning Shu looked for it online. On the internet, Ning Shu found a short video. It was said to be very popular. It was everywhere on Weibo. Ning Shu clicked on it. It was Gong Rong in a hospital gown. Gong Rong with short hair was extremely handsome. Because he was sick, he had a weak temperament. He was too attractive. Gong Rong sat on the snow-white bed. The sun shone through the window and shone on his body. He looked ethereal and hazy. Unlike the wailing and groaning in the hospital room, Gong Rong looked like he was filming a beautiful art film. Someone, I want to see you, Gong Rong said to the camera. Countless young girls' hearts exploded as they wailed. I am a certain someone, and I also want to see you. Ning Shu heard this and knew that Gong Rong was looking for him. He was sick. Why was he looking for her? Ning Shu's heart was filled with vigilance. He felt that his recent life had been very peaceful. He didn't have to be on tenterhooks or hide. What did Gong Rong want to do? Well, if you want to see me, I won't go. I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life. Wahahaha, Gong Rong was obviously bored in the hospital. He took a short video every day. Today is the second day. Someone, I want to see you. Today is the third day. Someone, I want to see you. Today is the fourth day. Someone, I want to see you. Wherever Gong Rong's handsome face looked, hearts would fall. Under his Weibo, there was a group of people who were unable to extricate themselves from his beauty. There were both men and women. Ning Shu watched all of Gong Rong's short videos. She focused on Gong Rong's face because his complexion was getting worse. Chapter 1561. Gong Rong was filming a short film every day, shouting, "Someone, I want to see you." The short film was very beautiful. Coupled with Gong Rong's appearance, it attracted a lot of people. It was comparable to a celebrity. Many people waited to watch Gong Rong's short film every day. A lot of people said that they wanted to give birth to a child for Prince Charming. Gong Rong's face was really attractive to both young and old. Even if men saw it, they would slap their thighs. It was really fucking beautiful. There were even management companies that wanted to poach Gong Rong to be a celebrity. With such a beautiful face, it was a waste not to be a celebrity. In the first 30 years, Gong Rong had appeared as a woman. Now that he had become a man, very few people thought that Gong Rong was that Gong Rong. Moreover, Gong Rong felt completely different when he was a man and when he was a woman. Ning Shu was puzzled. He had been raised as a girl since he was young, why didn't his personality change? Someone, I'm about to die. Aren't you going to come and see me? Someone, I want to see you. Ning Shu closed the computer. His heart hurt. What did Gong Rong want? However, it was true that Gong Rong said that he was about to die. There was a death aura between Gong Rong's brows. It seemed that he couldn't hold on for long. Ning Shu didn't plan to go. As long as Gong Rong died, some things would be resolved. He couldn't have anything to do with Gong Rong. Especially if Gong Rong died, SR Group would definitely be in chaos. This was a big piece of fat meat. Everyone wanted to eat it. There would definitely be a period of chaos. If she had anything to do with Gong Rong, wouldn't the firepower be focused on her? That wouldn't do. Moreover, with Ning Shu's understanding of Gong Rong, he definitely wasn't holding back anything good. He probably wanted to scheme against her before he died. Therefore, when Ning Shu heard Gong Rong call him that, Ning Shu felt that his heart was about to explode. Those who didn't know would think that they were in an ambiguous relationship. Ning Shu was waiting for Gong Rong to breathe his last. If this short film continued, Ning Shu was afraid that he would be found out. Fuck, there were always stupid men who wanted to push her to the forefront. Gong Rong worked tirelessly to shoot the short film. In the beginning, she was sitting on the bed, but in the end, she was sleeping on the bed. She weakly said, "Someone, I want to see you." Anyone could see that Gong Rong's situation was getting worse. The people under Gong Rong's Weibo were about to cry to death. They were all urging someone to take a look at their idol. Their idol was about to die. Ning Shu simply wanted to smash the computer. He had lost all hope in this world where looks were everything. You guys only see the frail Gong Rong, the beautiful Gong Rong, but you guys don't know what kind of person Gong Rong is. Ning Shu used a virtual IP address to leave a message on Gong Rong's Weibo. Someone of yours is already dead. Otherwise, he would have appeared long ago. Ning Shu sent a few messages. He was just short of saying, "Go in peace and don't wait." Then, Ning Shu erased all traces of himself. It was impossible to track her down. However, Ning Shu's words didn't cause any reaction from Gong Rong. Instead, it angered Gong Rong's fangirls, and they all attacked Ning Shu. "Our idol is about to die, and you're still saying that. You're too much, I just want to see someone in my life. You're too cruel. Can't you leave someone with a beautiful memory? You're so heartless and unreasonable. Ning Shu, I'm wrong, okay?" Gong Rong started to have difficulty breathing and put on an oxygen mask. Gong Rong was still shooting a short film. She said weakly, "Someone, I want to see you." "Ning Shu, see you my ass." Ning Shu realized that no matter whether he went or not, he would attract a lot of attention because of Gong Rong. This attention included the people of the SR Group. Now that Gong Rong had regained her male identity, the people of the SR Group must have known. Then, the someone that Gong Rong mentioned was probably a lot of people waiting for someone to appear. Ning Shu clenched his fists. He really wanted to smash Gong Rong's face on the screen. Hold it in, wait until Gong Rong dies. Fuck, why isn't she dead yet? A scourge lives for 1,000 years. Ning Shu was a bit afraid that Gong Rong would be selected by the system. One or two would be fine, but if another one came, Ning Shu would go crazy. Her mission was simply poisonous. It was like the red crane's crown that killed at the sight of blood. Why couldn't Gong Luo swallow her anger? Mother Su opened the door and came in. When she saw Ning Shu, she said happily, "I heard that there's a kidney. I might have an operation soon." Ning Shu hurriedly closed the computer. Hearing Mother Sue's words, he was delighted. That's great. He hoped that nothing would happen this time. As long as Gong Rong didn't die, Ning Shu's heart wouldn't be at ease. The gap between her and Gong Rong was too big. One was an ordinary civilian. She didn't have the money or social status to compete with Gong Rong. Ning Shu was now hoping that Gong Rong would die soon. It should be fine. We have some money. As soon as the kidney arrives, we can perform the operation. Mother Su was also very happy. After all, who wouldn't want to live if they could? Even ants would want to live. Moreover, she wanted to see her daughter start a family, have children, be healthy, and live a peaceful life. Especially after escaping death on the island, she felt how difficult it was to live a peaceful life. From now on, I'll take care of everything at home. You take good care of your body so that you can perform the operation, Ning Shu said to Mother Su. Mother Su rubbed Ning Shu's forehead with her face. I've failed in my life to find a man like your father who listens to others. It's fine if he listens to others, but he doesn't listen to me. He listens to other women. We rely on each other. I won't allow you to do such things in the future. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to live. You want mommy to live, but mommy wants you to live even more. If something happens to you, what do you want mommy to do? As Mother Su spoke, her tears fell and dripped onto Ning Shu's forehead. Tears seemed to seep into Ning Shu's heart, making Ning Shu's heart ache. Survival wasn't easy. Gong Rong was someone who stood at the top of the pyramid. What others tried their best to do, he could do with a word. To people who were lower than him, he was like pigs, dogs, cows, and sheep. Killing people was like slaughtering chickens. Ning Shu was a mission enforcer. He accepted all kinds of missions. There were mission enforcers of all ranks, and even animals. For Ning Shu, there were three kinds of people in this world. One was close to him, one was his enemy, and the last was people he didn't care about. There was no special class. If others didn't provoke him, he wouldn't provoke them. Generally speaking, he didn't agree with Gong Rong's values. Everyone had different values. It was impossible to have someone with the same values. Facial features were more important than values. Just look at Gong Rong's Weibo and the countless people who felt sorry for Gong Rong. She said something that wasn't very pleasant to the ears, and she was faced with a crusade. Originally, she was #/ Chapter 1562. Xin, don't let anything happen to you in the future. I'd rather die than let you die. Mother Su frowned. You don't know, but my heart has been pounding recently. I can't feel at ease. Mother Su's face was full of worry. Ning Shu comforted her. It's okay. You're nervous because you're going to have an operation. Don't worry. Mom, don't worry. No matter what, I'll protect myself. I still have to take care of you. How can I let anything happen to me? Ning Shu thought about it and said, let's move. Move again? Mother Su asked in surprise. It was easy to be exposed if they lived in one place for too long. The island incident wasn't over yet. Gong Rong hadn't let her off the hook yet. Ning Shu didn't plan to tell her that Mother Su was recuperating and preparing for the operation. It wasn't something Mother Su could solve. Letting her know would only add to her worries. It wasn't good for her body to think too much. I mean, let's move to a better place. It can be closer to the hospital. That way, it'll be more convenient for you to go to the hospital. Gong Rong couldn't find her if they moved often. Ning Shu was wondering if they should go abroad. In China, Gong Rong was hanging on by a thread. It was really annoying. There's no need to move. I think it's good here. The people around are nice, Mother Su said. It's too tiring to move around like this. Ning Shu saw that Mother Su really didn't want to move. It would take some time to find a place in a normal neighborhood like this. Mother Su's body couldn't take it either. Ning Shu didn't want to move. Everyone was waiting to watch Gong Rong's short films. Ning Shu was waiting for Gong Rong to stop filming. If she stopped, it would be the time for him to die. Oh heavens, Ning Shu had never wished for someone to die so viciously before. I'm going out for a walk, Mother Su said to Ning Shu. Watching others dance makes me feel younger. Mother Su now liked to watch people of her age dance. They were so energetic that Mother Su felt happy just by watching from the side. So when she was free, Mother Su would watch others dance. Ning Shu nodded. Yes, be careful. You can't dance now, so don't force yourself. Mother Su went out, leaving Ning Shu alone at home, watching Gong Rong's short film. Ning Shu could see that the current Gong Rong was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Ning Shu didn't know why Gong Rong was looking for him. Ning Shu closed the laptop. His heart was in a dilemma. Should she go or not? Should she not go or not? Ning Shu weighed the pros and cons in his heart and felt that there was no need to go. If he went, he would attract a lot of attention. She always felt that Gong Rong wanted to kill her, Simida. Why don't I just take Mother Su abroad? But now that I have ass, if I give up now, I don't know when the next time will come. Mother Su's illness could not wait any longer. Ning Shu's heart skipped a beat. He wondered if this was true. It seemed that Gong Rong also knew that Mother Su had uremia. This might be used by Gong Rong to fish, and he wanted to catch her. Or was there really ass, and Gong Rong was going to use it to threaten her? Ning Shu thought about it and put on a thin jacket. He planned to go to the hospital to ask about the. Ning Shu opened the door and saw a man in a black suit. The man was raising his hand to ring the doorbell. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. It was an old acquaintance. Li Zhao, the lean man who had been on the ship, was obviously Gong Rong's man. Miss Su, our young master is looking for you. Li Zhao said coldly. Please come with us. Ning Shu crossed his arms and raised his chin slightly. How did you find me? You don't have to worry about that. Li Zhao said and made way for Ning Shu. There were a lot of bodyguards behind Li Zhao, and they blocked the door and the stairwell. Ning Shu scanned them with her psychic power and knew that these people were armed with guns and even equipped with silencers. They were eager to kill her. He looked at Ning Shu warily. Ning Shu didn't know if he should be proud or speechless that so many people had come to pick him up. Please come with us. Our young master wants to see you. Ning Shu suddenly asked, how old is your young master? He was already an old cucumber, but he still pretended to be young and asked people to call him young master. After a brief silence, Li Zhao said, our young master looks young. Ning Shu couldn't argue with that. Your father is dancing in the senior center. Look. Li Zhao took out his phone. On the screen, Mother Su was sitting on a chair and watching other people dance. That meant that Mother Su was being monitored. Ning Shu didn't expect them to come so quickly. Sometimes, the address wasn't a secret. Mother Su often went to the hospital for kidney dialysis. Some information could be found with a simple search. Ning Shu looked at Li Zhao coldly. Li Zhao put his phone away and said, we won't hurt your father. It's just that our young master wants to see you before he dies. Li Zhao also hinted that Ning Shu would be rewarded for their meeting. Ning Shu was lost for words. She didn't want any benefits. There was no free lunch in the world. Gong Rong was looking for her because he wanted to see her before he died. She would rather believe that there were ghosts in this world than Gong Rong's mouth. Especially now, he was threatening her with her mother. It would be strange if there weren't ghosts. Ning Shu said with a smile, okay, I'll go with you to see Gong Rong. To be honest, I do miss him. Ning Shu went downstairs. There was a long line of black luxury cars parked at the gate of the neighborhood. It was a bit scary. Li Xiao couldn't help but be vigilant. It was a shame that they kidnapped their young master right under their noses. Although there were so many people, Li Xiao still didn't feel at ease. More importantly, the other party wasn't afraid at all in the face of such a lineup, which made them feel even more guilty. Ning Shu took out his phone and called Mother Su. The call went through and Ning Shu heard loud music on the other end of the line. "Mom, I have something to do. Come back and make yourself some food." After Ning Shu hung up, Li Xiao reached out his hand and said, "Please give me your phone for safekeeping." Although Li Xiao said, "Please," his attitude was very rude. Ning Shu snorted. "Is Gong Rong the head of the country? Can't I bring my phone to see him?" Ning Shu stared at Li Xiao. She was just holding back. If they really got into a fight, even if she couldn't win, she could still escape. Ning Shu was worried about Mother Su, who was being watched. Damn it, he knew this wouldn't be over. There was no end to it. Being stared at by Ning Shu, Li Xiao said, "Please don't do anything extreme. You can have the phone." Ning Shu, "It's mine. It's mine." Chapter 1563. The car drove steadily towards the hospital. A string of black luxury cars followed behind, each car filled with people. "Please search, Yen, to see the most complete. The fastest to update." Ning Shu's mouth twitched. She wasn't a terrorist. Did she need so many people to watch her? Ning Shu fiddled with his phone and bought 2 plane tickets, the fastest to leave this place. Li Xiao's gaze kept sweeping over Ning Shu's phone. Ning Shu said, "I'm checking which brand of sanitary napkin is the best. I didn't feel good before. Let's go together." Li Xiao coughed and looked away. When they arrived at the hospital, Li Xiao took Ning Shu through the VIP passage. They arrived at a ward. Li Xiao opened the door and sat down. "Young master is inside." Ning Shu walked in. There was a man sitting on a stool beside the bed, listening to Gong Rong. This man looked younger than Gong Rong. He wasn't old, but he was wearing a dark suit and looked mature. "Gong Yi, you can go out." Gong Rong's voice was very weak. "Yes, uncle." Gong Yi stood up and looked at Ning Shu with suspicion. When he went out, he closed the door. Gong Rong sat up. Ning Shu said, "If I didn't ask someone to look for you, you wouldn't have come. You're the most cold-hearted woman I've ever met. If it was an ordinary woman, she would have come to see me when I'm filming a short film." Ning Shu smiled and said, "Because I know you don't have good intentions." Gong Rong waved to Ning Shu. "Stand closer." Ning Shu walked in. Gong Rong grabbed Ning Shu's hand. His hand was cold to the bone. There was no fire in his body. Fire was also Yang Qi. "Su Xian, come with me," Gong Rong said. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu quickly pulled Gong Rong's hand away. But Gong Rong's hand was very close. His hand was so pale that the veins on the back of his hand were very obvious. Ning Shu asked, "What does go together mean?" "I just want to go to another world with me." "The netherworld?" "You are just that smart." Gong Rong smiled, like a plain flower slowly blooming. It was pleasing to the eye, and it was beautiful for both men and women. Ning Shu pried open Gong Rong's hand, finger by finger, and said, "Our 3 views are not compatible. We can't die together." "Fuck, do you think you're an emperor? Do you want people to be buried with you?" "Fuck, there were always men who either wanted to kill her to preserve her beauty or to drag her down with them." Gong Rong's fingers were pulled apart one by Ning Shu. Gong Rong didn't mind and said, "I knew you would say that." I just feel that if the two of us die together, it would be a great joy in life. Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu. I quite like your shameless personality. You're even more shameless than I am. How could he have the nerve to ask others to die with him? I'm living well. Why did you have to kill me when I provoked you? Gong Rong was a little tired. She leaned against the pillow and said in a low voice, You don't seem to like me very much. Ning Shu, did she like Gong Rong? Ning Shu asked, If you were living well and I asked you to die with me, would you be willing? Gong Rong nodded, I'm willing. I don't have any taboos about death. I knew I would die since I was young. Maybe tomorrow, maybe a year later, maybe 10 years later. Who didn't know they would die? The only thing in life that was certain was death. Ning Shu was speechless. Do you want me to be so touched that I'll die with you in the short film? Ning Shu figured out why she was on the death list. It was impossible that Gong Rong didn't know she was still alive. Then if she died, she would become a nobody. Even if she died, no one would pursue the matter. Then Gong Rong had planned to bury her with him before this. Ning Shu gave him the middle finger. Fuck. Previously, a man had said, I will preserve your beauty forever. Now, a man had said, let's go. Open the door to a new world with me. Ning Shu, fuck, Ning Shu took 2 steps back. Li Zhao took a step forward and pressed a gun against Ning Shu's waist. Don't move. Let young master finish speaking. Li Zhao said in a low voice. Ning Shu pulled a chair and sat down. Young master Gong, why do you want me to die with you? Well, maybe it's too lonely. If you're on the road to hell, I won't be lonely. Gong Rong's black eyes looked at Ning Shu. They were like the purest obsidian. She had long eyelashes and looked unexpectedly pure. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. You like me? Gong Rong shook her head. No. The feeling you give me is like a pet that died when I was 10. That was the first time I understood what death was. Ning Shu, fuck, she was a pet. I like to see you stubbornly struggling. It's very interesting. Gong Rong's face was pale. But a person's fate can't be changed by struggling. Although I can't control my own fate, I can control the fate of others. For example, yours. She looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu stretched out his index finger and waved it. No, no, no. Dear, you're going in the opposite direction. It's better to control your own fate than to control the fate of others. Gong Rong nodded. Maybe. Do you know why I want you to go with me? Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu shrugged. Who knows what you're thinking? Because you killed Gong Fu. Although I don't have evidence, I feel that you killed Fu Er. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. If you say that I killed your sister, then I killed your sister. I didn't even get close to her. How could I kill her? Don't put any shit on my head. There should be a limit to nonsense. Some things don't need evidence. It depends on the heart. My heart tells me that this matter can't be separated from you. Gong Rong said flatly. Ning Shu clicked his tongue. Your heart tells you. Your heart is rotten, black and rotten. What can it tell you? Ning Shu silently moved the stool away from Gong Rong. Could it be that Gong Rong was going to die and wanted to frame her death on her head? Ning Shu now guessed that Gong Rong was the most malicious person. She could even say that she wanted her to be buried with her. What else could she not do? Ning Shu released his spiritual force to check if there were any monitors in the ward. There really were monitors. If she did something, this would be the evidence. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Ning Shu stood up and planned to leave. Ning Shu regretted that this building was a bit high. It was a bit scary to jump down from the window. Gong Rong patted the bed weakly and said, It's not easy to come here. Let's talk more. Come, sit here. Ning Shu, why was it so difficult for her to live? Why the hell? Ning Shu grinned. What exactly do you want to do? Originally, she thought. Chapter 1564. I just want to talk to you. Relax. Gong Rong comforted Ning Shu. Don't be nervous. Ning Shu was really afraid of this kind of personality disorder. Everyone who wanted her to die would use such a gentle and doting expression. Yes, death is a gift to you. What does my life have to do with you crazy people? You fell in love with me. Ning Shu decided to disgust her. Fell in love with you? Gong Rong tilted her head and looked at Ning Shu. She actually looked a little innocent. Although I have never fallen in love with anyone, I know that love is a beautiful word. It is to hope that the other party will live well, to think for the other party and to contribute. But for you, I just want to drag you to hell with me. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck. Then you hate me. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. He hated her so much that he wanted to die together with her. Gong Rong shook her head. I don't hate you. I just feel that it is too lonely to die alone. If you were here, it wouldn't be so lonely, Gong Rong said. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu finally understood. In Gong Rong's heart, she was an inferior person. She didn't hate her, just like those concubines or slaves who were buried with her in ancient times. She felt that someone would die with her. Even in hell, there would be someone by her side to serve her. This was something that made people speechless. Your mother is being watched by my people now. As long as I make a call, your mother will die accidentally, Gong Rong said. Ning Shu closed her eyes. What she hated the most was being choked and threatened like this. Li Zhao had already taken out his gun from his waist. It was equipped with a silencer. As long as Gong Rong gave the order, Li Zhao would shoot her. The atmosphere was very tense. Just as the atmosphere was tense, there was a knock on the door. Li Zhao put the gun on his waist and opened the door. It was Gong Yi who had left earlier. Gong Yi glanced at Gong Rong and Ning Shu, as if he was guessing the relationship between Gong Rong and Ning Shu. Uncle, I forgot to tell you something. Gong Yi paused for a moment. Ning Shu immediately said, You guys talk, I'm leaving. Gong Rong stopped Ning Shu. It's not easy for you to come here. You can leave later. Then, Gong Yi looked at her with a gaze that was like a laser, as if he wanted to pierce through her body and see through her. Gong Yi's lips were red and his teeth were white. Probably because he was young, he deliberately pretended to be mature and steady, trying hard to show that he was trustworthy and capable. But in the end, he couldn't compare to Gong Rong, even if Gong Rong was terminally ill and was about to die. Ning Shu wondered if this person was the new heir of SR Group. Don't look at me like that. I have nothing to do with Gong Rong, and I'm not pregnant. A child won't suddenly appear and snatch things from you. You can rest assured. Before this, I didn't even know that Gong Rong was a man. Ning Shu said bluntly. Gong Yi, Gong Rong asked, anything else? Uncle, Gong Yi just wanted to come in and see the relationship between his uncle and this woman. As long as the heir's position wasn't confirmed, there would be variables. After pacing around the door for a long time, he finally mustered up the courage to open the door. Gong Rong only said, before you do anything, you have to think of a way out. Don't let others have something on you, understand? Go out, I want to say a few words to your aunt, Gong Rong said. Ning Shu and Gong Yi were both stunned. Aunt? Gong Yi frowned and looked at Ning Shu, then turned and left. Gong Rong, what do you mean? She was about to die, yet she still put the title of Madame Gong on her head. If you're a woman who loves me deeply, it's not impossible for you to die for me. Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu and said lightly. Ning Shu, fuck, what ant? Ning Shu finally saw how sinister Gong Rong could be. Even if she didn't die, the rest of the Gong family would covetously eye her, this widow. As the wife of the head of SR Group, if Gong Rong died, she, as the wife, would also get something. Wasn't this asking people to tear her apart? She was forced to be involved in the vortex of fighting for power. Whether she died or not, it didn't make a difference. Ning Shu looked at Gong Rong coldly. Gong Rong, it's really the mercy of the heavens that you're still alive. Gong Rong tilted her head and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu felt that he should really let those who saw Gong Rong scream come and see what kind of heart was under the handsome Prince Charming's skin. I also like how shameless you are, Ning Shu said lightly. Gong Rong still tilted her head and looked innocent. Ning Shu released an invisible force and destroyed all the cameras in the room. Bang, 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 bang. The cameras made crisp cracking sounds. Li Zhao was shocked and held his gun defensively. Ning Shu's figure flashed as she knocked Li Zhao unconscious. Ning Shu took out Li Zhao's gun and twirled the gun in Ning Shu's hand. Gong Rong was shocked for a moment and then calmed down. She looked at Ning Shu who walked to the bedside. Ning Shu pressed the gun against Gong Rong's temple. Gong Rong's expression didn't change. I knew you weren't an ordinary person. I'm really an ordinary person. It's just that I've been practicing martial arts for a few years. You really killed Gong Fu, Gong Rong said with certainty. Ning Shu shook his head. No, I didn't kill your sister. Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu. Do you have a way to let me live? Ning Shu smiled. Under Gong Rong's gaze, he said, no. Who the hell wants to save you? Ning Shu put his hand on Gong Rong's neck. Gong Rong reached out and grabbed Ning Shu's wrist tightly. She didn't let herself faint. Su Xin. Gong Rong shouted hurriedly and grabbed Ning Shu's wrist tightly. You're not allowed to go. I won't allow you to go. This obsession of wanting to drag her to die with him was too strong. Ning Shu smiled and pulled Gong Rong's hand away. Go to hell by yourself. You'll be lonely on the road to the netherworld. I'm happy to see you in pain. Ning Shu said, also, you've got the wrong person. I'm not Su Xin. I'm Su Chen. My sister, Su Xin, is dead. Gong Rong looked at Ning Shu as if she was looking at a fool. It doesn't matter what your name is. Ning Shu. Gong Rong's face turned green. Her chest rose and fell rapidly and she couldn't breathe properly. Ning Shu turned and left. Gong Rong clutched her chest tightly. Her breathing became more and more rapid and she fell off the bed. Ning Shu went out and closed the door of the ward. Gong Yi was still guarding the door. Gong Yi looked at Ning Shu with eyes full of scrutiny and said, Are you really my aunt? Ning Shu laughed. You're thinking too much. Ning Shu left like a gust of wind. There were bodyguards guarding the door of the hospital. Ning Shu avoided these bodyguards and left over the wall. Ning Shu quickly called Mother Su and asked where she was. Mother Su said that she would be at home. Ning Shu hurriedly took a taxi back. When he returned to the neighborhood, he saw 2 bodyguards wandering around downstairs. He was supposed to be here. Chapter 1565. Ning Shu's bodyguards were loitering downstairs. When they saw Ning Shu, they immediately pulled out their guns vigilantly. In a flash, Ning Shu appeared behind the 2 of them and knocked them out with a single strike. The 2 bodyguards fell to the ground. Ning Shu dragged them to the lawn, which was surrounded by neatly trimmed evergreen trees. Ning Shu hurried upstairs. He opened the door and said to Mother Su, Mom, let's go. What's wrong? Ning Shu packed 2 pieces of clothing and stuffed them in his bag. Then, He dragged Mother Su out the door. Mother Su was baffled as Ning Shu shoved her into the taxi with a confused look on her face. "What's going on?" Mother Su asked Ning Shu, who was closing the door. "I'll tell you later," Ning Shu said. "Let's go to the station." Ning Shu had bought a plane ticket, but she didn't plan to take the plane. If Gong Rong found a flight, it would be best to find it at the airport. She wouldn't go to the airport anyway. The taxi took them to the station. Mother Su got out and saw Ning Shu's serious face. She asked, "Did something happen? You're making me nervous." "I'll explain it to you. Get in the car first." Ning Shu pulled Mother Su onto the bus. They were going to stay in the next city for a while. How should I explain this? Ning Shu was stared at by Mother Su. He didn't know what to say or where to start. Anyway, this was really fucking weird. Last time, a young lady from the Gong family died. The Gong family said I killed her, Ning Shu said. I didn't kill anyone. I can only hide for now. Mother Su rubbed her head. Why is there no end to this? Didn't you change your identity? Identity was nothing. Today, he could be called Zhang San. Tomorrow, he could be called Li Si. Ning Shu browsed the news on his phone. It was reported that Gong Rong had passed away not long after she left the hospital. Gong Rong was dead. Ning Shu took a deep breath and asked 2333 in his heart, Gong Rong is dead. Did he become a quest taker? No, 2333 replied. Did it become a system? Nope. Ning Shu let out a long sigh of relief. As long as he didn't become a system quest taker, everything was fine. That means he has entered the cycle of reincarnation. Ning Shu patted his chest. First, there was Zhang Jiasen as a mission enforcer, and then there was Qing Fei as a system. If Gong Rong was added, Ning Shu felt that he could die. No, she wouldn't give up so easily. Maybe he has entered the cycle of reincarnation, or maybe he hasn't. 2333 said. Ning Shu said coldly, what do you mean? If you can't tell me what's good for you, I'll fucking kill you. Mission enforcers are just mission enforcers and the system. There are other professions too. It's like a company. There are many positions. Ning Shu was speechless. If it's a company, I think the company we're in now should be closed down. It took in anyone. Mission enforcers also form a social system. For example, the things in the market system must be made by someone to exchange for points, merits, and faith. All roads lead to Rome. He didn't become a mission enforcer or a system, but it doesn't mean that he won't become something else. 2333 said. Some people specialize in one path and reach the top. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and snorted. I don't want an answer that makes me unhappy. After Gong Rong's death, Gong Yi, Gong Rong's new successor, quickly held a press conference to confirm his position. Ning Shu let out a sigh of relief. Gong Yi looked very young. SR Group would definitely be in chaos for a while. It was hard to say if Gong Yi could hold on to his position. Ning Shu even suspected that Gong Yi was Gong Rong's successor on the surface, but he could also be a whetstone for Gong Rong. After all, no one knew what Gong Rong was thinking. Especially since Gong Rong had paved the way for her sister for so long. No matter how he looked at it, it wasn't a simple matter. But none of this had anything to do with Ning Shu. As long as the fire didn't burn her, it was fine. As for the title of Mrs. Gong, she had no legal relationship with Gong Rong. Ning Shu and Mother Su found a place to stay in the next city and waited for the storm to blow over. Gong Rong was already a dead person. A dead person had no human rights. Now that she was alive, she only wanted to fight for fame and fortune. No one cared about how Gong Rong died. Sometimes, Gong Rong's death was used to attack the trusted leader, Gong Yi. In fact, many people suspected that Gong Yi killed Gong Rong. But there was no evidence. Ning Shu watched the fire burn across the river. She was already a dead person anyway. Now she was using Su Chen's name. Ning Shu was worried about Mother Su's operation. It was really full of twists and turns. Something would happen every time. He didn't know when the operation would be. Mother Su, on the other hand, was worried about Ning Shu. Do you think they'll find us? They won't. The Gong sisters were already dead. The incident on the island was already over. The higher-ups of SR Group earned millions every minute. They fought for fame and fortune. How could they have the time to care about her? There was basically no chance for them to meet in the future. They were not in the same circle. Ning Shu really wanted to find a beautiful place to live with Mother Su. There was no thrilling, only a plain life. Not everyone could withstand turbulence, especially if they had nothing on them. They couldn't withstand any turbulence at all. Some people said that it was better to die brilliantly than to live a mediocre life. Ning Shu would rather live a plain life and watch the clouds move by than die brilliantly. Sometimes, living was a luxury. It's okay. Nothing will happen. Don't worry, Ning Shu said casually. Mother Su stared at Ning Shu and said, "Why don't you just get married? You're not young anymore. Why haven't you found a partner?" Ning Shu, this topic was a bit too big. Ning Shu said, "Don't worry. There will always be someone waiting for me." Waiting for me. Mother Su, the king of hell. My heart hurts, Mom. Mother Su just felt that if she got married, she would at least have someone to rely on. But Ning Shu didn't have such thoughts. Ning Shu was still very cautious about marriage. The responsibility of marriage and the harmony of the family. Especially when she married with such thoughts. Besides, she didn't like who she was getting married to. When Mother Su had the surgery and was a little healthier, she would leave. What happened in the future was none of her business. After that, Ning Shu had been paying attention to SR Group's affairs. Unsurprisingly, Gong Yi couldn't be compared to those old foxes. The older, the wiser. Gong Yi couldn't even take care of himself, let alone come to Ning Shu. Especially since his aunt didn't get anything, and there was no legal relationship. The hospital informed Mother Su to be hospitalized, saying that the kidney had been confirmed. Once the kidney arrived, the surgery could be done immediately. Ning Shu hoped that Mother Su would have the surgery. After all, if she missed it, who knew when the next time would be? Originally, she had thought about it. Chapter 1566. Mother Su gave up on the operation. No need. You've been through so much because of my illness. Forget it. I'm afraid you'll be in danger when we go back. Please search, Yen, for the most complete information. The fastest update. Ning Shu decided to go to the hospital first. If it was really a trap, she would take Mother Su abroad for medical treatment. She would also study abroad. Mother Su grabbed Ning Shu. No, I think I'm much better now. If something happens to you, I'd rather be sick like this. Ning Shu was speechless. Now, Mother Su had really become a frightened bird. Ning Shu said that she would sneak back to take a look. Maybe they didn't care about them at all. They were the only ones who were trembling in fear. They were like ants. Would people waste their energy looking for ants that had been bitten? It wasn't worth it. Ning Shu went to the hospital and asked the attending doctor. The news was true. Since it was true, she would do it. The hospital arranged for Mother Su to stay in the hospital. Ning Shu comforted her. It's okay. Don't worry. Ning Shu went to pay the money. More than half of the pension had been used up. After that, Mother Su still had to take medicine. The money wasn't enough. Mother Su stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks and was then pushed into the operating room. Ning Shu waited at the door of the operating room. After almost half a day, Mother Su finally came out. The operation was successful. Ning Shu let out a long sigh. Mother Su's 2 bad kidneys had been removed. Now they had a good one. Mother Su had to take good care of her body in the future. She couldn't do heavy work and had to take medicine. Ning Shu had been wary of the people from SR Group, but during the operation, they didn't come to her at all. That was what they were afraid of. Ning Shu was relieved to let Mother Su stay in the hospital for a while. After being discharged, she went home to rest for a long time. Ning Shu told Mother Su about going abroad. Mother Su said that she wanted to go with Ning Shu to take care of her. Mother Su was very uneasy and felt that it was better to go with them. Besides, her daughter needed someone to take care of her when she went to study. Mother Su and Ning Shu took their passports and boarded the plane to fly abroad. Quest complete. Do you wish to leave the quest world? 2333's voice appeared in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu looked at the clouds outside the window and felt bitter in his heart. He didn't find the source of this world again. It was already not easy to complete the mission. World origin, where are you? Leave. Ning Shu felt dizzy and returned to the system space. His soul felt terrible. Right now, his soul was very weak. When he transmigrated, it was fucking terrible. Ning Shu first sat down cross-legged and began cultivating, absorbing the pure soul power. However, after absorbing for a while, the soul power disappeared. Ning Shu opened his eyes and looked at his soul. Sigh, it's not enough, it's not enough. Ning Shu sighed. Such a thin soul. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem like the soul of a super mission enforcer. Ning Shu helplessly opened his attribute panel and looked at his gains. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Enforcer Points card, 108, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul value, 2 health value, 1 wisdom, 1 charm, 1 spirit, 1 martial strength, 2 aptitude, 2 faith, 42,000 merit, 15,260, 30 law understanding, none skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, exceptional martial arts proficiency, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, beginner embroidery skill. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Tools, Calm Aura, Calming Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for Life, Meow Meow Meow's Blessing. Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding Woman, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty in Law, Chen Ning's Blessing, Bane of the Blood Clan, Jasmine's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, Bai San Yang's Blessing, Heart of the Brave, Wang Ying's Blessing, Fulfill Su Xian's Wish, Survive on the island and cure her mother's illness. Mission completion rate, 95%. Received 5 points, 3 attribute points, 5,000 faith, including the accumulation from the previous world, and 60% of the soul power. Ning Shu was speechless. This 60% of the soul power referred to 60% of the soul that the client gave. Ning Shu asked, where did the other 40% go? It's taken away. Before you became a super mission enforcer, you could only get 30% of the soul power. Now the mission will distribute the soul power according to your completion rate. Half of it is 50/50ths. 2333 explained. When 2333 said this, she felt like she was a worker being exploited. Especially since there were too many mission enforcers, the amount of soul power they could gather was simply terrifying. What about the remaining 10%? Ning Shu asked. I have an unshakable 10%, this is my benefit. 2333 said. Most likely, the rest of the soul power was taken away by the higher-ups. Now at least she knew the proportion of the soul power she received, unlike before where she was blinded. Was this the benefit of becoming a super mission enforcer, knowing how much she was being exploited? Ning Shu added the attribute points and prepared to go to the law space to comprehend the law. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, super mission enforcer points card, 108, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul, 2 HP, 1 wisdom, 11 charm, 1 spirit, 11 martial strength, 21 aptitude, 2 faith, 42000500 merit, 15230 soul strength, 20 law comprehension, none skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, exceptional martial arts proficiency, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, beginner embroidery skill. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor items, Calm Aura, Calming Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Lifelong Friend, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding General, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty-in-Law, Chen Ning's Blessing, Bane of the Blood Clan, Jasmine's Blessing, Cross-Race Communication, Bai San Yang's Blessing. Brave Heart, Wang Ying's Blessing. Ning Shu saw that there was an extra soul strength in the attribute window, her soul strength was only 20. Ning Shu asked 2333, what's 20 soul strength? Originally from #/ Chapter 1567. A soul strength of 20 points was a bit shabby, very shabby. Ning Shu felt that if it was her previous soul strength, it would definitely be more than 20. Sigh, a real man doesn't boast about his past achievements. 2333 was silent for a moment, it's equivalent to your soul when you became an intermediate mission taker. High-level planes, super planes have stable laws and walls. With your current soul state, it will be so uncomfortable when you teleport. Moreover, your soul is too weak. It's easy to be controlled by the residual emotions in your body. 2333 said. Ning Shu wiped her face. How long has it been since she was affected by the residual emotions in her body? Now her configuration can't keep up. She used so much soul strength in exchange for the opportunity to enter the space of laws. If she gave up on the super mission trial, she would lose the opportunity to enter the space of laws forever. In general, there are gains and losses. Ning Shu asked 2333, what law do you think I should learn first? Don't be too ambitious. There are not many people who can learn this kind of law. It's very lethal, but it's very difficult to learn. Out of 100,000 mission takers, there might not be one who can learn it. Learn some laws of water and fire first. These laws can solve some basic problems, such as making a fire and drinking water. Ning Shu was speechless. No one doesn't want to learn high-level laws, but the laws of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth are not simple. It's not easy to learn. 2333's voice was full of contempt, don't underestimate any law. Ning Shu scratched her head, then let's go to the city of water. First, learn the law of water. Water has the most forms, solid, liquid, gaseous, and endless changes. And there are many kinds of water, weak water, heavy water, various kinds of water with various characteristics. Ning Shu felt that if she could control the law of water, if there was no water to drink in the desert in the future, she could get some water to drink and she wouldn't die. Ning Shu stood at the entrance of the passage. During the teleportation process, Ning Shu felt really uncomfortable. Her soul was too weak. If it was in the past, it would be in the blink of an eye. Now, Ning Shu felt like a dough that was being kneaded here and there. When he stood on the bluestone, Ning Shu felt very weak, as if his body had been hollowed out. Ning Shu looked at his surroundings. The layout of the Water City and the Time City were exactly the same. Ning Shu even thought that he had arrived at the Time City. The bluestone slab had very faint laws. When Ning Shu stepped on it, he felt as if he was stepping on water. Even her soul had become incomparably moist. Ning Shu felt that this city of water was very humid, and even his soul was stained with water vapor. It was as if he was sweating in the summer, but the sweat didn't dry and stuck to his body. He felt terrible. Ning Shu looked at the souls that brushed past her. Their souls were very strong, and some of them looked like real people. He should be a very powerful super taskmaster. Ning Shu's weak voice attracted the attention of many people. Those who could enter this place were all super taskmasters. It was probably because Ning Shu's soul was too weak that he could appear here. It was very strange. Ning Shu stared at the weak soul and planned to go to the restaurant to eat something first. The things in the restaurant were very expensive. It was unlike the virtual space where he could eat a lot of things with points. The things here were rare and expensive. They were all paid with merit and faith. Ning Shu ordered a snack that could make Ning Shu more resilient. It looked like a cupcake, but it cost 15 points of faith. Ning Shu was speechless. So evil. He felt that this world was full of malice. Ning Shu ate the snack slowly with a fork and looked at the people around him. These people were all here to comprehend the laws of water. Ning Shu didn't leave the city. If he went out, he would definitely be destroyed by the laws of water. Ning Shu sat by the window of the restaurant and felt the fluctuating laws under his feet. Just the laws of this city were too much for him. He couldn't even resist these laws, let alone comprehend them. Ning Shu felt invisible water flowing over her feet, then her ankles, then her calves, knees, waist. There was no water, but Ning Shu clearly felt that water was drowning her soul. It had already reached her heart. It was slowly submerging her neck. Ning Shu's heart couldn't help but feel panic. The panic of drowning. Ning Shu couldn't even control her instincts and wanted to flop. However, the water still flooded Ning Shu's nose and mouth and went over her head. Ning Shu was clearly in a spiritual state, but she felt like she was drowning. She couldn't vent her anger. She was drowning. Her soul was so heavy that it seemed to be pulled by something. It was so painful, so painful. Ning Shu felt that her soul was going to turn into water. Ning Shu saw that the others looked normal. They were eating and drinking as usual. There was nothing wrong with them. Hang in there. If you want to comprehend the law of water, you have to adapt to it. Turn yourself into water. Only then can you comprehend the law of water, 2333 said. Ning Shu wanted 2333 to teleport her back. She had no power now. She was like a normal person who was about to drown. When she heard 2333 say that, Ning Shu could only grit her teeth and endure. Her lungs were so swollen that they were about to explode. Ning Shu endured like that. In the end, her mind was muddled. She lay on the table and lost consciousness. Ning Shu, who was sleeping, felt very comfortable. She was floating, warm and comfortable. When Ning Shu woke up, she felt that the suffocating feeling was gone. Ning Shu heaved a long sigh of relief. She still had lingering fear, helplessness, and despair. Her body felt much more comfortable, and the sticky feeling was gone. Her soul was refreshed. What happened just now? Ning Shu asked 2333. 2333 said, "It's just a little bit. It's negligible. If you can't even adapt to this, you can forget about going out of the city to comprehend the law of water. Basically, everyone who comes here for the first time will experience the feeling of drowning. Some people can endure it, while others can't. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Ning Shu felt that the road ahead was long. This was just the city. There were surging law of water outside the city. It could drown her in an instant. If she couldn't even endure or adapt to the law of water, she couldn't even comprehend it. Just the law of water was already like this, let alone the high-level law of time and law of space. Ning Shu held her head. Oh my God. Comprehension depended on talent. Some people comprehended it instantly. It was better than others who had comprehended it for tens or hundreds of thousands of years. It was really hopeless. No wonder Mei Ziqing became a super mission taker before her and still couldn't comprehend the law of water. Damn. She was in a bad mood. Ning Shu ordered some snacks. She spent 30 faith power to buy 2 pastries. Comprehension didn't depend on hard work. Sometimes, she couldn't comprehend it even if she racked her brains. Ning Shu knelt down to those mission takers who could comprehend the law of water. Originally, she thought. Chapter 1568. Ning Shu ate the pastry with a fork and calmed down. This kind of thing can't be rushed. Please search, for the most complete. The fastest update. Comprehending the laws wasn't something that could be done in a day or two. If she couldn't comprehend it in a day, she still had endless life, as long as she wasn't erased. Ning Shu wasn't in a hurry at all. Calming down was the key. One step won't get you to the sky. Today was the first time he saw the laws. Oh, it wasn't really seen, but he really felt 1/10,000th of the power. Ning Shu finished the pastry on the table and said to 2333, let's go back. Ning Shu was needed like dough again and returned to the system space. Ning Shu exchanged for fasting pills, water, and medicine from the system store. Ning Shu looked at the round medicine in his hand. These things were made by people. Ning Shu browsed through the system store. There were a lot of things, from small things like chairs and sofas to big things like space transactions. These were all made by people. Ning Shu thought about it and felt that Gong Rong might not be reincarnated. What if she was taken in by someone? After exchanging for what he needed, Ning Shu exchanged for another shelf and then took out a book. Ning Shu liked to read this kind of book because it was old. Someone didn't want it and then gathered it together. Some of the books even had someone's handwriting. Some of the content was still very beneficial to Ning Shu. In addition, Ning Shu's memory was now very good. If he couldn't remember it the first time, he could remember it the second time. Ning Shu finished reading and put it on the shelf, then took a deep breath and said cheerfully, I'm going to do a quest. Do a quest, find the origin of the world, and then comprehend the laws. Ning Shu's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. Life was really fulfilling. One day, she would be able to comprehend the laws, be able to build a world, and become a strong person. Ning Shu didn't want to control the fate of others, but her own fate. If she wanted to live, she would live, if she wanted to die, she would die. Not if others wanted her to die, she would die. If she wanted to live, others would let her die. All right. 2333 said, the fusion of the soul orb should be almost complete. Soon, you will be able to meet the client. Ning Shu looked at the small black hole on the wall. It was already very small. It looked like the fusion was about to be completed. Now entering the quest. As soon as 2333's voice faded, Ning Shu disappeared from the system space. Fuck, I forgot to ask her if she should do the system quest. 2333 said angrily. Ning Shu felt as if he had fused with a body. When he woke up, he had a terrible headache. He was sitting in front of his computer. The computer was still open. He was probably doing work reports. Ning Shu rubbed his forehead. What a headache. When Ning Shu stood up from the chair, his footsteps were weak, as if he was stepping on cotton. Ning Shu poured some water from the water dispenser. After drinking some water, he felt a little better. He scalded himself on the bed and felt a little more comfortable. Ning Shu supported his heavy body and sat cross-legged on the bed. He began to cultivate and accept the plot. Ning Shu was cultivating while accepting the plot. However, when he received the plot, Ning Shu was petrified. His mouth was open and he was stunned. This was a world that Ning Shu had never seen before. Even if Ning Shu had seen a lot of things and felt that he had seen everything in the world. However, this world had turned Ning Shu's worldview to ashes. Yes, the client was called Duan Shui. She was a white-collar worker in a company. She was staying up late last night to do a project. Staying up late exhausted her body. Duan Shui was just one of the many living beings in this world. However, this world was quite strange and salty. To what extent? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu was speechless. Su Hongyuan was a programmer. The main character of this world was Su Hongyuan's, a little tadpole. That's right, a little tadpole. Su Hongyuan was a single dog. He was almost 30 years old. His looks were average and not outstanding. However, he wasn't ugly to the point of being hated by the heavens. One day, he went to donate his sperm but was told by the doctor that he didn't meet the standards. Su Hongyuan was angry at that time. He could fuck and fuck. How could he not meet the standards? The doctor brought Su Hongyuan to see his little tadpoles. Other men had many and lively little tadpoles. They swam around happily and were full of vitality. Su Hongyuan only had one or two and they looked like they were dying. It seemed that he couldn't make it. Su Hongyuan was speechless. He never knew that he was an azoospermia patient. Su Hongyuan scratched his head. What should he do? He still had to carry on the family line and marry a wife. He still had to warm the bed with his wife and children. In the spirit of scientific research, the doctor said that a new drug had been developed recently. However, it was new and he didn't know what side effects it would have. However, it could make the little tadpoles more energetic and increase the number of little tadpoles. Su Hongyuan decided to eat it. 2 days later, Su Hongyuan felt a pain in his balls. It was really a pain in his balls. Moreover, Su Hongyuan's little brother couldn't control himself when he looked at the erotic things. His balls hurt even more. When he saw the cleavage of a beautiful woman on the subway, his balls hurt. When he saw the new female colleague in the company, she was pouting her butt and pouring water, his balls hurt even more. Su Hongyuan hurriedly went to find the doctor. The doctor said that if he felt uncomfortable, he could fuck it out. He also gave Su Hongyuan an indescribable magazine and asked him to use it. Su Hongyuan was fucking in the toilet. Then, he let out a tragic scream. The doctor went in to take a look. Su Hongyuan passed the cup to the doctor. When the doctor saw it, he was so scared that he threw the cup away. A finger-sized tadpole was shaking its head on the ground. The doctor stepped on the tadpole. With a squeak, the tadpole exploded. White pulp burst out. I have to do some research. I think the drug's effects are too strong. That's why it grew so big. This matter was considered to be over. Su Hongyuan went on a blind date. The blind date was a beautiful girl. Su Hongyuan's crotch bulged again. When he sent the girl home, he couldn't help but run to the girl's toilet. After venting for a while, a small tadpole came out. This small tadpole was first the size of a finger. Then, it grew to the size of a fist. Su Hongyuan panicked and grabbed the small tadpole and stuffed it into the toilet bowl. In the end, this thing grew bigger and bigger and pushed open the toilet bowl lid. The small tadpole was white. It even grew black and yellow sharp teeth and eyes. It was a monster. It directly rushed out of the toilet and swam on the ground. Seeing this strange creature, the girl was scared to death and fell to the ground. But the small tadpole swam and actually drilled between the girl's legs. A small tadpole the size of a football drilled into the woman's body. The scene was really disgusting and horrifying. Luckily, Su Hongyuan's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed the small tadpole's tail and pulled it out, throwing it out of the window. Then, this strange creature wandered around the city and killed people. The goal of the giant spirit was to get fertilized. Its attack method was to drill into a woman's body. How could a woman withstand it? It was simply too disgusting. Originally, it was self-inflicted. Chapter 1569. This alien grew bigger and bigger until it became a huge monster. It killed people and destroyed the city. Everywhere it went, it turned into ruins. The alien traveled through the city. When it saw a woman, it would drill into her body and swallow her. Duan Shui was a member of this city. The alien destroyed the city and Duan Shui wasn't spared. This thing drilled into her leg. Duan Shui was a woman. It was hard for her to imagine that this thing would drill into her body from below. This was really a case of sitting at home and disaster fell from the sky. The client, Duan Shui, was also a proud girl. She worked hard and stayed up all night just to buy a house in this city. It wasn't easy for her to gather enough money for the down payment. Then, she died. She was very unwilling. This matter couldn't be said to be anyone's fault. Su Hongyuan's little tadpole mutated under the effect of the drug. He also didn't expect such a situation. But the city was destroyed. Many people died because of it. The economic losses were serious. Ning Shu suspected that he had entered a dream. An absurd and erotic dream that was only for the sake of stimulating the senses. Otherwise, how could such a situation occur? The client had no way to deal with the alien, and there was no way to survive this disaster. Even if the government used powerful weapons to destroy it in the end, it was because this thing caused a huge loss. Many people died, including the client. The client felt bitter in her heart. The money in her card. Her down payment. Damn. Her house. Her lifelong goal was to take root in this prosperous city and have a house of her own. The veins on Ning Shu's forehead throbbed. His head hurt from staying up all night. Ning Shu took out 2 painkillers from the bedside drawer and took them. Calculating the time, Su Hongyuan should have taken the medicine by now. Although Su Hongyuan didn't do it on purpose, it caused such a situation. In the end, what made people speechless was that Su Hongyuan and the girl he trusted fell in love and were very happy. Sigh, he didn't know what to say. Su Xian's wish was to live. Her wish to buy a house was really persistent. Ning Shu sat cross-legged. His hands formed seals and set up a yang gathering formation around the bed. He started to absorb the power of the yang fire. There was little spiritual energy in the modern world. Ning Shu could only absorb the power of the yang fire. As long as one had the strength, they would be able to survive. After cultivating for a while, Ning Shu closed his laptop, put it in his bag, and went to work. This project was very important. The original owner had been busy with this for several days. If this proposal was approved, there would be a large sum of money. Today was the day to hand in the proposal. Even if the sky fell, Ning Shu had to go. Even after taking painkillers, Ning Shu still felt light as he was squeezed into the subway. There were no more seats on the subway. Ning Shu grabbed the handrail and decided to take a short nap. The apartment rented by the client was quite far from the company. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and felt a pair of hands touching and pinching his buttocks. There was a sea of people on the subway. Everyone was very close to each other. It was normal for there to be physical contact. But it wasn't normal for his hands to touch her like this. Ning Shu opened his eyes. Get your dirty hands off me, or you'll be handcuffed. Ning Shu's voice was neither loud nor soft. The people standing next to Ning Shu could hear it. The hands touching her buttocks disappeared immediately. On the contrary, Ning Shu attracted a lot of strange gazes. Ning Shu turned a blind eye to this kind of gaze. Why didn't he say that he was hurt? Even if he was being looked at strangely, he would let the person who touched her receive such a gaze. There was no need to let her bear it alone and let the molester enjoy it. As soon as the person who molested Ning Shu arrived at the station, he hurriedly got off the subway. The person sitting in front of Ning Shu and reading the newspaper put down the newspaper. Ning Shu said, "Sit down." This person had been using the newspaper to cover his face. He didn't know if he was reading the newspaper or resting. He didn't even look at what had happened just now, nor did he watch. Ning Shu and the man were stunned at the same time. Duan Shui. Wen Xing. This was a coincidence. According to the client's memory, this Wen Xing was an employee of another department and they didn't have much interaction. Wen Xing stood up. Sit down. Then he stood in Ning Shu's seat and grabbed the handle. Ning Shu didn't stand on ceremony. He sat down and said, "Thank you. I didn't know that we were going the same way." Wen Xing put away the newspaper. Wen Xing was a man of few words. In addition, the two of them didn't have much interaction at work, so they weren't very familiar with each other. Ning Shu leaned against the back of the chair and looked at Wen Xing. Ning Shu felt that Wen Xing was different from the Wen Xing in the client's memory. Although his face was ordinary, he had a gentle feeling. He was neither arrogant nor impatient, making people ignore his mediocre face. Temperament was really hard to say. Ning Shu felt that Wen Xing was not the Wen Xing of the past. Wen Xing's eyes met with Ning Shu's. There was a clear stream flowing through his eyes. For a moment, Ning Shu saw another face on his face. It was really not the original Wen Xing. "Why are you looking at me?" Wen Xing asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "You've changed." Wen Xing's face was calm. "I've always been like this." "How do you know that I've changed?" He was biting on words like this. Ning Shu flipped his hair and said with a smile, "As someone who wants to take root in this city, I know every local man in the company. If the client wanted to take root in this city, one was either to buy a house and become a resident of this city, or to marry a local. The client insisted on buying a house by herself. First, she had to make the down payment, and then pay the mortgage every month. This way, she would have the foundation to establish herself and her own assets. Duan Shui, who had been struggling like this, knew that material things weren't everything. But only when material things were satisfied could there be spiritual enjoyment. Only when one was well-fed could one think about marrying a local man. This was also under the condition that she had assets. In particular, this city was very prosperous. The local residents had a sense of superiority and looked down on foreigners. Duan Shui hadn't been in a relationship for a long time. It was a waste of time and most importantly, a waste of money. Even if there was a man who paid the bill, who knew what would happen in the end? Ning Shu was very convinced by Duan Shui. Duan Shui only had money in her mind. She had to write down all her expenses in a small notebook. However, Duan Shui was a fashionable white-collar worker in the city. She bought expensive classic clothes and matched them like this. The clothes had a good texture. Instead of buying cheap clothes that didn't have any clothes that could hold the scene, it was better to buy more expensive clothes. Every goddess lived a hard life, especially the hard-working and beautiful goddesses, who were even more amazing. Only then would you look like you could accomplish anything easily. When Wen Xing heard Ning Shu's words, a look of surprise flashed across his face. He just said, "I am me. Who else can I be?" Ning Shu didn't expose anything. As long as it didn't affect her mission, it was fine. Chapter 1570. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. This guy might also be a mission enforcer. As long as there was no conflict, Ning Shu wouldn't care. After sitting on the subway for more than an hour, they finally reached the platform. After leaving the subway station, they still had to walk some distance to reach the company. Ning Shu and Wen Xing went to the company on the way. Ning Shu looked at Wen Xing from the corner of her eyes. He was carrying a briefcase, wearing a suit, and looked like he was following her every step. Ning Shu felt that he had the leisurely and romantic temperament of a scholar from the Wei and Jin dynasties. This style wasn't the style of a romantic, but rather a style of elegance that was reserved and refined. Hey, your temperament is too obvious, anyone can feel that something is wrong. Wen Xing stopped. When he turned around, he didn't turn his head, nor did he twist his body. Instead, he first moved his feet and turned his body with his feet. This was the first time Ning Shu saw such a gentleman. But when she thought of the small tadpole alien, Ning Shu couldn't help but look at Wen Xing's indescribable part. A man who took that kind of drug could get a giant tadpole, my god. Even if Ning Shu was standing in front of a man who was peerless in the world, beautiful to the point of anger, handsome to the point of exploding the heavens, blah 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 blah. It couldn't get rid of the cold feeling in Ning Shu's heart, tsk tisk tsk, especially when that thing drilled into the mission enforcer's body and used its sharp teeth to bite the body. So disgusting. Wen Xing naturally used his briefcase to block his part, blocking Ning Shu's gaze. I'm leaving first. Wen Xing turned around and left. Ning Shu shrugged her shoulders and rushed past Wen Xing in her high heels. Fuck, I'm going to be late, I have to use my life to clock in. Wen Xing stopped, looked at Ning Shu's back, and said helplessly, I was recognized again. Wen Xing didn't know why he was always recognized when he was doing missions. He felt that he was already very careful, speaking less, and doing his best to follow the mission enforcer's actions. But in his mission career, he was always on the road of being recognized. If there were no conflicts, it would be fine, but if there were conflicts, it would be very unfavorable for him. Some people said that he wasn't suitable to be a mission enforcer. Because his personal style was too strong. Wen Xing didn't run as fast as Ning Shu, but he wasn't slow either. Ning Shu punched his card, and he did the same. While waiting for the elevator, Ning Shu looked at him from the corner of his eye. To be able to appear in a high-level plane or a super plane, one had to be a super mission taker. With a ding, the elevator door opened. Wen Xing was one step behind Ning Shu as he entered the elevator. He was a gentlemanly and warm man. However, a warm man was also cold. He treated everyone the same. Being warm was just a way to reject people. The elevator was packed with people, and there was also the smell of scallion pancakes. This was a big company. If they wanted to stand out among so many people, they had to work harder. There was also the matter of dealing with interpersonal relationships. Wherever there were people, there would be conflicts. Even in the office, there was danger. If he was lenient, he would just pack up his things and leave. He might even be sued. It was definitely not wrong to be cautious. Ning Shu and Wen Xing tacitly didn't ask about each other's identities. They were like ordinary colleagues, cold and distant. When they reached the office, Ning Shu first made a few copies of his proposal and then printed them out. He had to protect his own things well. Ning Shu stapled the printed things one by one. This way, he wouldn't be flustered when he was busy. Then, he put it in the drawer and locked it. Ning Shu glanced at the calendar on the table. It was the 13th. In 2 days, the client would die. That thing should be wandering around the city now. If it wasn't hiding in the grass, it would be in the gutter. It would become bigger and bigger in the future. The client was attacked when he got off work. Sure enough, it was interested in women and liked to burrow into women's bodies. Just thinking about it gave Ning Shu goosebumps uncontrollably. It was like chopping off a penis. Everything would be over once and for all. When the director said that it was time to submit the proposal, Ning Shu took it out of the drawer and handed it in. After a period of busy work, it was a little more leisurely. The colleague sitting opposite Ning Shu stood up and said to Ning Shu, "There's been a pervert recently. Have you seen the news?" Ning Shu grunted. "What news?" The girl leaned closer to Ning Shu and said, "The news said that there's a pervert who specializes in attacking women, and, the girl walked around the table and leaned close to Ning Shu's ear and said, "He attacked a girl's lower body and ruined it beyond recognition." Ning Shu was speechless. It's not just her lower body. Even her body is ruined. The more the girl spoke, the paler her face became. Ning Shu saw that the fine hair on her face was standing up. Ning Shu was speechless. He didn't even want to eat lunch. Ning Shu thought that since she was Su Hongyuan's little tadpole, she should have Su Hongyuan's genes. Why didn't the police investigate Su Hongyuan? Although Su Hongyuan didn't do it on purpose, his actions caused a huge storm. Many innocent people died because of him. In the end, nothing happened to Su Hongyuan. It was really difficult to calm down. During lunch, Ning Shu looked at the work meal and had no appetite at all. He picked up his chopsticks and poked at the rice. Ning Shu was worried that he would have a psychological barrier if he didn't like men in the future. After this incident, Ning Shu decided that he would cut his balls together in the future. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of soup and immediately thought of stepping on it and splashing it far away. Oh, fuck. Ning Shu choked on the soup and couldn't swallow it. Then he saw Wen Xing sitting opposite him with a tray. Ning Shu opened his mouth and the soup flowed out. Ning Shu spat the soup on the tray. He really couldn't eat, especially when he saw Wen Xing approaching. Wen Xing was speechless. He lost his appetite too. Ning Shu wiped his mouth with a tissue and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Wen Xing pushed the tray aside and looked at Ning Shu. "Since we both know in our hearts, my goal is to destroy that thing and protect as many people as possible. A city has been destroyed and so many people have died. It has a great impact on the plane. It's fine if the buildings are destroyed. What's important is the people." Ning Shu nodded. "Okay, our goal is the same." Wen Xing nodded. "We can work together. Happy working together." Wen Xing reached out his hand to shake Ning Shu's. Ning Shu stared at Wen Xing's hand. Then he touched it with his fingertip and immediately retracted it. Wen Xing was stunned. "Are you afraid of me?" "No, I'm afraid that the men in this world can squeeze out giant tadpoles." Wen Xing. "Our first task now is to find the opposite sex and get rid of it before it causes more damage and kills more people," Wen Xing said unhurriedly and clearly. Ning Shu clearly saw the halo of a Holy Father rise above Wen Xing's head. Chapter 1571. A mission enforcer whose heart was filled with love. However, just having love in one's heart was not enough to reach this step. There had to be a matching strength. Where should we start looking? Ning Shu supported her chin. It should like to attack crowded and dark places, such as bars. Wen Xing was silent for a moment before saying, "My luck has always been good. Maybe we can find it." Ning Shu looked at Wen Xing silently and then rolled her eyes. She hated people with good luck. "Wen Xing, what's wrong with this little girl?" Wen Xing pushed his lunchbox in front of Ning Shu. "You can't eat yours. Eat mine." "I didn't touch it." Ning Shu waved her hand. "No need." She didn't want to eat fried bean sprouts. Wen Xing hesitated for a moment before asking, "You still want to eat yours?" "Ning Shu, I don't have an appetite." Ning Shu put her hand under the table and a fasting pill appeared in her palm. Ning Shu ate the fasting pill and her hunger finally disappeared. She also found another advantage of fasting pills. Other than saving time, one pill could last for a few days. Also, fasting pills could perfectly satisfy the body's needs when she felt nauseous and did not want to eat. Then let's get off work together, Wen Xing said to Ning Shu. I want to ask you, what defense and attack methods do you have? Before Wen Xing could finish speaking, an earth-shattering scream erupted from the restaurant's kitchen. Wen Xing immediately stood up and rushed to the kitchen. Ning Shu also quickly followed. In the kitchen, she saw something white and greasy drilling into a woman's leg. There was a long tail behind it. Oh, my eyes. The woman who was attacked by the tadpole was scared out of her wits. She didn't know how to react and was extremely frightened. The alien probably came from the sewers and opened the cover. Especially at the sink, the sewer cover had already been opened. Wen Xing grabbed the alien's tail and used all his strength to throw the tadpole to the ground. With a smack, the tadpole hit the wet ground and made a squeaking sound. After a period of time, the tadpole grew bigger again. Its entire body was covered in a sticky liquid, which made people feel very disgusted. Even after being smashed to the ground by Wen Xing, it did not die. It opened its mouth, revealing a dense array of yellowish-black fangs, and bit towards Wen Xing. Ning Shu grabbed the stool and smashed it with all his might. However, Ning Shu's hands were numb from the impact. It was as if he had smashed a truck's tire. The force of the rebound caused his arms to go numb. The giant tadpole screeched and swam desperately, trying to get rid of Wen Xing's control. The tadpole's body was covered in mucus, and it was slippery. The tadpole's strength was great, and it struggled to break free, wanting to escape into the sewers again. Obviously, he knew that these two people were not to be trifled with. His sperm's instinct was to swim non-stop and then combine. Ning Shu grabbed the stool, channeled his qi into his dantian, and smashed it on the little tadpole's head. Both of his hands were numb from the impact. The tadpole was in pain. It turned its head and rushed towards Ning Shu. Its tail swam like a snake. Wen Xing grabbed the chopping board and shouted at the kitchen knife, Ning Shu, get out of the way. The kitchen knife chopped down on the tadpole alien's head. White milk-like liquid splashed out, splashing onto Wen Xing's face and clothes. The alien screeched. The kitchen knife was stuck in its body, and it crawled into the sewers. Now that the alien had escaped, Ning Shu's stomach was churning uncomfortably. It was too disgusting. There was no big and cute thing in this world. Its size had been magnified countless times, and it was terrifying. A creature that could only be seen under a microscope was now magnified countless times. Seeing this kind of thing, Ning Shu felt that his heart was very weak. Especially now that his soul power was weak, he was always affected by the residual emotions in his body. Seeing this thing, he felt disgusted, scared, and hateful. Ning Shu shook his numb arms. Both of his hands were shaking. Looking at the messy Wen Xing, he silently backed away from him. Wen Xing's body was covered in milky liquid. He used his hands to wipe his face. His hands were sticky. Don't come near me. I'm afraid I'll get pregnant. Who knew if this was his thing? Everyone in the kitchen had run away. Only Ning Shu and Wen Xing were left. Wen Xing said, get some water and help me rinse it. I don't have colleagues to love. Ning Shu went around Wen Xing, grabbed the hose on the ground, turned on the tap, and flushed Wen Xing's body. Although Wen Xing was wet, Ning Shu didn't want to look at him. She would never forget the scene of white milky liquid splashing on his body. It was too fucking memorable. Wen Xing directly took off his shirt, revealing his thin body. He looked like a white chicken. It was obvious that Wen Xing was a mission enforcer who could endure hardship. Colleague, can you help me buy a set of clothes? Wen Xing asked Ning Shu as he took off his pants. Then Wen Xing took off only a pair of underwear. Ning Shu was speechless. What elegant Wei and Jin Dynasty scholar. It was just an illusion. Ning Shu really wanted to kick between his legs. Maybe this place was pregnant with an alien. Ning Shu patted her face, threw away the hose, and went out to buy clothes for Wen Xing. There were a lot of people gathered at the entrance of the restaurant. Seeing Ning Shu come out, they quickly asked, "Duan Shui, what was that just now? Was it a mouse? Have you ever seen a mouse that's so big and doesn't have legs? Hurry up and call the police. Say that there's an unknown creature attacking people." Ning Shu said and went out of the company to the clothing store to buy clothes. Wen Xing was very thin. He didn't have any extra fat, but he also didn't have any muscles. Ning Shu casually bought some t-shirts and jeans. After thinking about it, he also brought a pair of underwear. Wen Xing's whole body was wet. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and stuffed the underwear into the bag. He also took 2 towels. Well, he also took 2 bottles of disinfectant. Wen Xing should peel off 2 layers of his skin so that he could wash himself clean. Ning Shu wasn't a clean freak, but in this case, he felt that it was better for Wen Xing to reincarnate. Thinking about the liquid that rushed out of the alien's body. Sigh. Back at the company's restaurant, Ning Shu gave the bag to Wen Xing, "Thank you." Wen Xing thanked him. Ning Shu sat on the chair in the restaurant and looked at his hands. His hands couldn't stop shaking. Because he used too much force, the rebound force hurt. Wen Xing put on his clothes and came out of the kitchen. Ning Shu said, "It ran away this time. It won't be easy to catch it again. This thing has rough skin and thick flesh." Ning Shu was really speechless. In the end, it would grow bigger than the house. If it knocked down the house, it could eat many people in one bite. It should eat a lot of people. Relying on the body's medicinal properties and the energy provided by people, it would grow bigger and bigger. Wen Xing wanted to sit down, but Ning Shu immediately grabbed the chair and moved it back. "Have you used the disinfectant? Let's talk from a distance," Ning Shu said directly. Chapter 1572. All of Ning Shu's impressions of Wen Xing were overwritten. He couldn't remember anything about being gentle. All he could think of was that his face was covered in milk. Only one thing was needed to destroy that impression. Wen Xing was speechless. "You don't have to be so nervous. Those things should be nutrients, equivalent to human blood. It's not enough to get you pregnant," Wen Xing said. Ning Shu was expressionless. He moved his lips. "Actually, I'm even more disgusted when you say that." Because of the incident at the restaurant, the employees were not in the right state of mind at work. Everyone was in a state of panic. Many people had seen that thing before. It was lunchtime and there were many people. At first, they were just there to join in the fun. But when they saw how powerful this thing was, they couldn't wait to run away. The police received a call and sent people over. They didn't know what the hell it was. But with so many people swearing that they found it, the police didn't know what to say. Since it was in the sewers, let the people who cleaned the sewers start investigating. Ning Shu felt that it was useless to let the people who cleaned the sewers investigate. This thing could crawl on land and was like a fish in water. Its speed was especially fast. Those sanitation workers were simply there to deliver food. Ning Shu said, "That thing has fangs, is very fast, and its skin is thick. Ordinary people definitely can't deal with it. It's better to send some capable people. At the very least, it should be a police officer with a gun." "I agree. That thing is really powerful. It was also very disgusting." Wen Xing agreed with Ning Shu's words. The police frowned. For an unknown thing, they had to carry a gun. The police were looking for something in the sewers every day. Was the city still going to run? Besides, who would be willing to do such a thing? After the police left, Wen Xing said lightly, I rarely look for the police for missions because it's slow and I don't know how to be flexible. It's far less convenient than acting alone. Sometimes, they even played a shady role. Not everyone was upright and selfless. I'm just saying. Although it doesn't help much, it won't be easy to shirk the responsibility in the future, Ning Shu said. They had already called the police. If anything happens, it's your own fault. What can you do? After work in the evening, Wen Xing, who was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, was waiting for Ning Shu at the entrance of the company. Let's go eat something first, then look for that thing. Wen Xing Ning Shu said. Ning Shu shook his head. I'm not eating. I've already eaten the fasting pill. Well, I don't need to eat either. I was worried that you would be hungry. Wen Xing seemed to be relieved. After being sprayed all over, Wen Xing had no appetite at all. He wasn't hungry at all. The city was already lit up with neon lights. It would be difficult to find an alien in such a big city. In particular, the city's sewers were crisscrossed and extremely complicated. Just thinking about it gave him a headache. Ning Shu wondered if he should activate the GPS system and spend 5 merit points to locate the alien. Aliens should be able to locate him, right? He didn't expect that he would have to locate a sperm. Just as Ning Shu was about to turn on the GPS, Wen Xing took out 3 copper coins and shook them in his hand before scattering them on the ground. Wen Xing squatted down and looked at the copper coin. Ning Shu squinted his eyes. Wen Xing was a fortune teller. Let's go southeast. Wen Xing kept the copper coin. Ning Shu asked, how far to the southeast, and where exactly is it? As we walk, I will divine at the same time. The divination will tell us that the closer we are, the more accurate the divination will be. Wen Xing headed southeast. Ning Shu followed behind him. Back then, she was also a dabbler in Maoshan Taoist. She wasn't very good at divination. Are we going to walk there like this? Ning Shu asked. Don't forget that the little tadpole swam very fast. Wen Xing stopped in his tracks and performed another divination. Wen Xing said that he was lucky. Ning Shu didn't think so. Fortune tellers were all revealing the secrets of the heavens. They were the ones who suffered losses. Lucky? Are you kidding me? How's the situation? Ning Shu asked. The direction hasn't changed. Wen Xing stopped in front of a KTV and flicked his thumb. The copper coin spun in the air and was finally caught by Wen Xing. Wen Xing opened his hand and looked at the copper coin. Finally, Ning Shu said, let's go in. It should be here. Ning Shu didn't care. She originally wanted to protect the client's life. It was fine as long as the client didn't die during the mission. No matter what, she should have at least waited until the government came to deal with it. But she was dragged here by Wen Xing. But it was a good thing to get rid of that disgusting thing as soon as possible. She hoped that other people wouldn't have to go through what the client went through. The KTV was filled with cries and howls. The lights were dim and ambiguous. There were people coming and going in the aisles. Ning Shu and Wen Xing looked around the KTV. This KTV was very big and there were many private rooms. Wen Xing stopped. Ning Shu asked loudly, what's wrong? Wen Xing turned and left the KTV. He tossed the copper coin again. Ning Shu sat on the flower bed bitterly and hammered her legs. That thing ran away again. Wen Xing frowned. Maybe, probably ran away again. Ning Shu, where did it go this time? Ning Shu asked. She wanted to turn on the GPS. Fuck. Southwest, Wen Xing said. I suspect that it smelled my scent and ran away. Ning Shu chuckled. It peed on you? He had already washed himself clean, but it could still be smelled. That thing was too heaven-defying. Not likely. My luck has always been very good. Don't worry, Wen Xing said. Wen Xing held 3 copper coins between his fingers. His index finger and thumb formed a seal. There was a golden thread that strung the 3 copper coins together. The copper coins vibrated slightly and actually left Wen Xing's hand and flew in a direction. Ning Shu, fuck, this thing was more useful than the GPS. The GPS would give you a location and then you would have to find it yourself. This even led the way. The copper coins didn't fly high, only about the height of a person's knee. It was night now, and the color of the copper coins was dark, so basically no one could see them. Wen Xing stopped at the manhole cover on the side of the road. The manhole cover was lifted. Ning Shu moved her nose and smelled a fishy smell. It should have been left behind by the alien. Wen Xing squatted down and planned to cover the manhole cover. Ning Shu gave him a hand and the two of them worked together to cover the manhole cover. There were people coming and going. If someone fell down, it would be troublesome. The copper coins went to the bar, which was full of people coming and going. Ning Shu released his mental strength. At this time, even without the copper coins to lead the way, he could find the traces of the alien. It left traces of mucus wherever it crawled, just like a snail crawling through a place. The music in the bar was deafening, and the men and women on the dance floor were crazily swaying their bodies. The traces left by the alien were not obvious. Chapter 1573. The bar was noisy and crowded, so it was a bit difficult to find an alien. Wen Xing's copper coins shuttled through the crowd on the dance floor. Wen Xing and Ning Shu squeezed into the dance floor to keep up with the copper coins in front of them. Ning Shu squeezed and squeezed, but there was still a man in front of him, shaking his head and swaying his tail as he danced. He probably wanted to pull Ning Shu with him. Ning Shu wanted to go around him, but the man twisted his waist in front of Ning Shu again. Ning Shu couldn't see Wen Xing anymore. He slapped the person in front of him away. I'm busy. Ning Shu quickly caught up with Wen Xing. Are we going to the toilet? Probably. In the range of Ning Shu's mental strength, Ning Shu had already seen the toilet sign. As he approached the toilet, Ning Shu's mental strength passed through the wall and saw the situation in the toilet. He heard cracking sounds. Ning Shu hurried into the toilet and saw blood flowing out of the toilet cubicle. There was no sound of struggling inside. Obviously, the person was dead. Wen Xing put away his copper coins, and Ning Shu stepped back, intending to open the door. Ning Shu stood aside. Since Wen Xing opened the door, he would open it. If it was any other monster, Ning Shu wouldn't even blink, but this kind of thing. Ning Shu was afraid of getting pregnant. Wen Xing reached out to open the door, but the door was locked from the inside. It was probably someone struggling and the door was kicked open. Wen Xing pulled and opened the door. The alien with a long tail was lying in a pool of blood, gnawing on a person's body. The basin-sized tadpole supported its head with its tail and then bounced onto Wen Xing's body. The huge impact directly slammed Wen Xing into the wall. It opened its mouth to bite Wen Xing's face. Ning Shu raised his foot and kicked the tadpole away. The tadpole hit the wall and fell to the ground, chirping. Wen Xing gave a piece of golden thread to Ning Shu and pointed to the foot of the wall. Go there. Ning Shu was speechless. However, Ning Shu still listened to Wen Xing and wrapped the golden thread around his palm twice. Wen Xing held the other end of the golden thread and wrapped it around the small tadpole. The little tadpole screeched ferociously and dodged everywhere. Then, it rushed towards Ning Shu. I used the golden thread to entangle it. Wen Xing Ning Shu shouted. Ning Shu kicked the small tadpole up and quickly wrapped the golden thread around the small tadpole's body. Pull with all your might. Wen Xing pulled the golden thread with all his might. Ning Shu pulled on the golden thread from the other end. A few circles of golden thread wrapped around the alien's body. With a tug, the golden thread cut into the alien's body. Some splashed out from where the golden thread was entangled, wetting the floor. There was a fishy smell. The xenomorph struggled violently, and the more it struggled, the more the golden threads tightened around its body. Ning Shu's hand was entwined with golden threads. Blood flowed out as the golden threads cut into his flesh. "Come on, let's try to solve it this time." Wen Xing shouted Ning Shu. At the same time, Ning Shu felt the golden thread go deeper into his skin. The xenomorph screamed very miserably. "Fuck, it really hurts. This is like hurting the enemy by 1,000 and hurting oneself by 800. Ning Shu looked at Wen Xing and saw that Wen Xing had unknowingly put on gloves. "Fuck, do you still have colleagues? Why don't you give me a pair of gloves?" Ning Shu didn't dare to relax. He pulled hard, and the xenomorph screeched. Ning Shu's spiritual power sensed that someone was coming. They were coming to the toilet. Someone's coming. Ning Shu pulled hard, and all the golden threads sank into the xenomorph's body. To be honest, this kind of golden thread was like cutting a tire. It felt very powerless. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. Ning Shu screamed at the door, "Don't come in. The toilet is blocked. The floor is full of dirty water, feces, and urine. I'm cleaning it up." The footsteps at the door stopped, and a girl asked, "Really? Really, it stinks in there." The person at the door was skeptical and turned to leave. "Hurry up, someone will come soon." Ning Shu's chi sank into his dantian, and a burst of chi hit the xenomorph. The xenomorph struggled in pain, crazily twisting its body, desperately struggling, and dragging Ning Shu and Wen Xing away. "You should have given me a pair of fucking gloves. If this goes on, not only will I not cut the xenomorph, my hand will be cut off." Ning Shu was sweating profusely and relied on his great strength to not be dragged. The price was that his hand was injured. If the tendons in his hand were cut, Ning Shu and Wen Xing would not be finished. The veins on Wen Xing's face were bulging, and his gums were almost bleeding. He panted and said, "Sorry, I forgot." The xenomorph was like a mad bull, rampaging in the toilet without caring about anything. Ning Shu and Wen Xing were dragged around by the xenomorph. Ning Shu cursed in his heart. He hardened his heart and released the power of the sun flame, beating the alien until it cried out miserably. "Someone else is here." This time, there were many people. The bar owner must have heard that the toilet was blocked and came to take a look. Wen Xing and Ning Shu were a little anxious, especially when there was a dead person lying in the toilet. It was quite troublesome to explain. The xenomorph ignored them and rushed out of the toilet, dragging Ning Shu and Wen Xing, and met the people who came to the toilet. What the hell? Everyone was dumbfounded as they stared at the big tadpole in shock. The tadpole was as big as a wash basin. Ning Shu shouted, "Quick, help me catch him." Rather than be suspected of murder, it was better to let everyone know about this damn thing. The silk thread cut into Ning Shu's palm, and blood flowed out. Drop by drop, blood splattered on the ground. But everyone was more afraid than curious about this monster that had suddenly appeared. They didn't even dare to attack. The bar was in chaos. Everyone screamed and fled. The xenomorph dragged the two of them around the bar. The tables and chairs were knocked over, and the drinks were scattered all over the floor. The bar owner was so distressed that he trembled. "My wine, my wine." Ning Shu was shocked. The xenomorph's defense was so strong that Ning Shu felt it was inconceivable. Its appearance and texture were like cooked egg white, which could be cut open in a flash. But it was like being strangled on thick rubber, and there was no progress. In particular, its strength was very strong. Ning Shu was now like being dragged by several tractors. No matter how strong she was, she couldn't stop it. No wonder it grew bigger and bigger in the end. It could hit a building with its own body. It was strong enough, and its defense was strong enough. Now, it was just a disaster for the city. If it was strong enough, it could cross the sea and run everywhere. Wen Xing's face was quite ugly. He took out 3 copper coins with his other hand. The 3 copper coins flew at the xenomorph at an extremely fast speed, producing a buzzing sound. The 3 copper coins pierced through the xenomorph's body, making 3 small holes and splashing out. The xenomorph's body became much smaller. Ning Shu and Wen Xing used all their strength and pulled hard, directly cutting the xenomorph's body in half. Chapter 1574. The aberration let out a mournful cry as it was sliced into 2 halves. The blood from its body splashed onto Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu, no, Ning Shu wiped his face, wiping away the blood on his face. He saw something squirming in the blood, and there were quite a number of them. They were all thumb-sized aberrations. Ning Shu couldn't help but look at Wen Xing, and Wen Xing also looked at Ning Shu. Could it be that the head of the big aberration was pregnant with smaller aberrations? Ning Shu wanted to vomit. These small aberrations moved very quickly and attacked anyone they saw. They especially liked to attack women and burrow into their legs. Ning Shu hurriedly picked up the wooden stool and smashed it at these things. After being smashed by Ning Shu, these things exploded. They were so dead that they couldn't be any more dead. However, there were simply too many of them. With just Ning Shu and Wen Xing, it was impossible to deal with them. Ning Shu saw with his own eyes that a woman's stomach was bulging. The aberration had burrowed into her stomach and was running around in her stomach. The woman was in incomparable pain and fear. There was something rampaging in her body. Ning Shu was very anxious. He wanted to use a knife to cut open the woman's stomach and grab the aberration out. In the blink of an eye, the aberration rushed out of the woman's stomach and swam out. The woman let out a mournful cry and stopped breathing. There was a hole in her stomach, and it was terrifying. Ning Shu took the knife and directly stabbed it into the aberration's head. The aberration was stabbed, and its tail was still swaying. Its fleshy tail looked exceptionally disgusting. There were countless aberrations in the bar, and they scattered in all directions. Ning Shu and Wen Xian only killed a small portion of them. Moreover, the people in the bar who didn't manage to escape were all attacked by the aberrations. Even with the help of the fiery sun, they only killed a small portion of them. Ning Shu pursed his lips tightly. This was truly out of Ning Shu's expectations. The aberrations now were still very weak. The bar owner's face was blank as he looked at the mess in his bar. He was in despair as if he had been raped. Let's go. Wen Xing kicked away the alien that wanted to attack the bar owner and pulled him out of the bar. When they left the bar, there were already police officers outside. The owner of the bar hugged the police officer and wailed in grief. Ning Shu was so tired that he sat on the ground and looked at his bloody hand. It really hurt. Wen Xing also sat down and sighed with a heavy expression. The police looked for Ning Shu and Wen Xing for questioning. Ning Shu leaned her head against a telephone pole on the side of the road. She was so tired that she did not want to be questioned. The cut on her hand had to be tended. His clothes were full of disgusting things. Wen Xing went to talk to the police. After that, Ning Shu said, "I'll take you to the hospital." It was time to go to the hospital. There were scars on Wen Xing's face. The golden thread had torn his gloves. His hand was also injured. He wasn't much better off than Ning Shu. The doctor treated Ning Shu and Wen Xing's wounds. Ning Shu said, "I didn't expect this to happen. It was so hard. It was not easy to kill the old one, but there was still the young one. I should have thought of it." Wen Xing frowned. "But if we don't kill it, it will grow bigger and bigger. The small aliens in its body will also grow bigger and more and more. Ning Shu frowned. Why would this happen? Only sperm and eggs can reproduce. What the fuck, where are my morals? I think it should be because of the medicine. Wen Xing's face was pale as he gasped. The doctor was applying disinfectant to his wound. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. What a headache. The medicine was originally to increase the number of sperm and enhance the vitality of the sperm. But Su Hongyuan can only squeeze out one at a time. Maybe the extra number is in the body of the big sperm. Damn, just thinking about it made him feel disgusted. Maybe. The important thing now is not how this happened. I am afraid that when these small tadpoles grow up, there will be countless small tadpoles in their body. When Ning Shu heard Wen Xing's words, all the hair on his body stood up. It was disgusting and terrifying. Wouldn't it be endless? Mama, I want to go home. Let's talk about it later. Maybe there isn't. But these scattered ones are a headache. Wen Xing looked dignified. Okay. The doctor said. Hearing the conversation between Ning Shu and Wen Xing, he stared at them with a strange look. After taking the anti-inflammatory medicine, Ning Shu and Wen Xing left the hospital. Do you want to eat something? Wen Xing asked Ning Shu. I have no appetite at all. Feeling the night breeze, Ning Shu felt his tense nerves relax a little. He felt weak all over. What is the wish of your client? Ning Shu asked Wen Xing. Of course it is for his family, parents, wife, and children. Especially his son, who was just 1 month old and was swallowed. His whole family died. Wen Xing said. How did you do it? This place is so dangerous. Naturally, I can't stay here. I sent them away to a place far away from this city. If the situation can't be controlled, the aliens will grow bigger and bigger. If they are not here, there won't be any danger. The funds, bank cards, and real estate certificates were all taken away. If the aliens destroy the city, the government will definitely compensate with the real estate certificates. Ning Shu stared at Wen Xing. He thought that Wen Xing was a mission enforcer who wanted to spread his love to the world. He didn't expect Wen Xing to be so two-faced. Mission enforcer's mission is to complete the mission. They can't be confused. When they have extra energy, they should do something within their power to earn some merit. The most important thing is the mission and the client. After all, the client gave up his soul power and asked for a counterattack. Protecting oneself is the most important thing. Ning Shu agreed to act with Wen Xing because he knows that only when this thing is completely dead can the client's fate of being killed by this thing be changed. Then, Ning Shu wants to look for the world's origin. Ning Shu is thinking about whether she should buy a house. Now that the city is in chaos, if the situation really can't be controlled in the future. If an alien grows bigger and wreaks havoc in the city and the house collapses, will she be able to make a fortune from it? But what if the government and the developer don't compensate? She won't have money and a place to live. Ning Shu's heart is in a dilemma. Buy, don't buy, don't buy, 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 buy. What's your mission? Wen Xing asked. Ning Shu, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. Wen Xing. What's your serial number? I'll add you. If there are any missions in the future, we can team up. Wen Xing asked Ning Shu. 2333, Ning Shu said. Wen Xing, tell me your serial number and I'll add you. 2333. Ning Shu repeated. Wen Xing was stunned. I'll ask the system to add you. Ning Shu feels that Wen Xing is mocking her serial number. God knows why she has this serial number. If there are any missions that you need to team up with, you can find me too. Wen Xing said gently. Chapter 1575. Wen Xing was gentle like jade, an elegant young master. But when doing missions, he was very skillful, at least he didn't have to worry about being dragged down or backstabbed. His character was quite good. To be honest, Ning Shu was quite happy to receive such an invitation, at least it was an affirmation of her strength. They didn't deny her ability just because she was a woman. Some people regarded her as someone they could respect and cooperate with. Okay. Ning Shu said with a smile. I'll send you back. Wen Xing said. Ning Shu shook her head, no need, I can go back by myself. Ning Shu got into the taxi, returned to her rented apartment, and lay on the bed. Her whole body hurt because she used too much strength, her muscles were strained. Originally, this body didn't usually exercise much, but today's exercise was too much for the body to bear. Ning Shu looked at her bandaged hand and felt that Wen Xing was too deceitful, he didn't even give her a glove. That golden thread should be the weapon that Wen Xing exchanged before doing the mission. Ning Shu felt that exchanging for an axe was better than the golden thread. If she knew that this world was like this, Ning Shu would have definitely exchanged for a gun in advance. Because of the black hole created by the fusion of soul orbs, Ning Shu hadn't seen the client in advance for a long time. Ning Shu sat up and suddenly thought of something, that is, Wen Xing seemed to have the ability to predict the future. Wen Xing let her stand in one place, then she could successfully wrap the golden thread around the alien's body. The ability to predict the future was simply amazing, could it be the law of time? She would ask Wen Xing tomorrow. Ning Shu sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. She didn't cultivate much after coming to this world, and then she encountered the alien. The alien was a hard bone, it was not easy to bite down, but in the end, she found that there were diamonds in the bones. So many small aliens would attack people, they would slowly grow up, so many. Just thinking about it, Ning Shu felt a sharp pain in her head. She didn't know if it could be cleaned up. What if one of them was lurking somewhere and attacked people when they weren't paying attention? Only when these things were all dead, this mission could be considered completed. Not for others, but for the client. Ning Shu had thought the mission would be simple. He just had to deal with a mutated sperm, but he did not expect the sperm to have so many babies. What a mess. There was no way to look directly at such things. Even men found it hard to look directly at them. Ning Shu drew a cross in front of his chest. Amen, please bless my sexual orientation. Ning Shu, I'm so desperate. After a night of cultivation, Ning Shu felt pain all over his body the next day. His hand was wrapped up, so he couldn't give himself a massage. Ning Shu and Wen Xing arrived at the company with their hands wrapped. When Ning Shu saw Wen Xing, he asked, have you mastered the laws of time? Wen Xing was a little confused and said, no. Then how can you predict the future? Ning Shu asked. Wen Xing shook her head. Instead of calling it the laws of time, it's better to call it a curse. I can know what happened in the past, but I can't change what has already happened. As for predicting the future, I can only vaguely guess, but there are countless possibilities in the future. It's not easy to predict, Wen Xing said. Mastering the laws of time is different. You can control time, but I can't, Wen Xing said. Ning Shu knew that his question was a little abrupt, so he said, thank you, I understand. Since we're working together, we naturally have to know some basic information about each other. What do you know? Wen Xing really stumped Ning Shu. She didn't have any outstanding skills. After a moment of silence, she asked, does my strength count? Yes, I can see that. Ning Shu was speechless. Curses were something closest to the laws, but they weren't laws. They were far from the real laws, but they were still very useful. Comprehending the laws was a very difficult thing. Mastering curses was relatively easier. However, after mastering the laws, the difference between the power of curses and the power of laws was like heaven and earth. Ning Shu wanted to take a step back and master the power of curses. This way, the mission would be easier. There would be enough time to master the real laws. If you want to master the real laws, don't comprehend the pirated laws. Although those curses also have the power of laws, they can't be compared to the real laws, 2333 said. The real laws carry the power of heaven and earth. Mastering countless curses is not as good as mastering one law. Everything is fair. Because it's difficult, its power is even more amazing. Ning Shu listened to 2333's words and didn't speak for a long time. I think it's a little difficult to rely on peerless martial arts. If there's no other means, it's a little difficult. She wanted to master the real laws, but it was a little difficult now. If that's the case, you can choose to go to the law space to comprehend the laws. Anyway, mission enforcers don't have the time flow. You can stay in the virtual space for as long as you want, 2333 said. Of course, this is just my suggestion. Ning Shu supported her chin with her hand. As a result, she touched the wound on her hand and cried. It seemed that she had to slow down the progress of the mission and comprehend the laws more. If her strength couldn't keep up and she entered the mission, she would be tired and unable to complete the mission perfectly. But if she didn't do the mission, her soul was so weak that she needed the mission enforcer's soul. Her current soul strength was far behind the super mission enforcer's. Probably no super mission enforcer's soul was as weak as hers. Ning Shu, I'm in a pickle. In short, Ning Shu had a lot of problems in front of her. Her soul was weak, she didn't master the laws, she found the world's origin wood, but she didn't build the world. Ning Shu, I'm so desperate, really. Forget it, let's take it slow. She had enough time to solve these problems one by one. I have a lot of time, I'm willful. But thinking about so many xenomorphs, Ning Shu felt a headache coming on. No, she couldn't say it was a headache anymore. Su Hongyuan was a headache that caused this thing to come out. Ning Shu felt that her GPS system could locate these things, but it would cost 5 merit points each time. With so many, Ning Shu's little bit of merit was not enough. Especially when it came to locating them. These things couldn't be located, but they could move at any time. Ning Shu, I'm even more desperate. Ning Shu stared at her hand. She had to think of a way to heal her hand quickly. The longer she delayed, the bigger those things would grow and the greater the threat. Anyway, she couldn't hide from them. She had to face them. Ning Shu had to face these disgusting things head-on. If she had known, she would have exchanged for guns and bullets. When she got off work that night, Ning Shu said, I bought a shotgun. I'm going to modify it. It should be lethal. Let's try it tonight. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.